So in today's podcast, I am joined by Real Gang frontman and all-round top guy, Danny Miller. We chat all about his experience at Ibiza, how Real Gang was formed, and just his general outlook on life. It's a really interesting listen, and we go really deep on some great topics, so enjoy. Yeah, mate. How are you?
Surviving, let's say. But yeah, all good, man. I was actually really excited to do this today because all I do right now is music all the time, and I don't stop to talk about it that often. So I was looking forward to today, brother.
Yeah, it's actually really a therapeutic experience talking for 2 hours to someone without checking your phone.
In it,
Yeah.
I need to get that out somewhere, bro. So I'm really looking forward to it. And
Yeah.
Also going back down memory lane, I'm sure we're going to talk about a few things that have happened previous. And I've been loving reminiscing recently, like especially trying to hold on to something. It's nice to talk about things, bro.
Yeah. I think that's one thing I found with the podcast. It's almost that social release that I would have got from going to clubs or whatever, but instead it's through a computer. But it's better than nothing, mate.
Exactly that. I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to watch in terms of people doing podcasts and things. There was that many going around at one point, and I watched one with Benny Rodriguez, a friend of mine, and it really resonated with me what he said, that he didn't really understand what it was like to be away from a crowd, and then he didn't realize what it was like mentally, and then when he was speaking about it and he was exploring it in the podcast, this is when it started opening doors up. So that's what really interests me about doing this today.
Yeah, I think better out than in, they say.
I hope so.
So it's come at a convenient time. It's the anniversary of your beloved Real Gang. So
It is.
should we start off? What is Real Gang? If someone met you on the street and it was Danny Miller from Real Gang, and how did it start, man?
It sounds it sounds very different when you hear the word gang. First of all, if you don't know what it's affiliated to, let's say. But our love child was born 5 years ago now, as of this month, which feels crazy. Not like the last year existed, but the 4 years before that, it seems like a very long time saying 5 years, and it feels crazy. But at the same time, when I think about it, everything that's gone on, it feels like it's been 50 years, to be honest, not 5. Real Gang actually started is we were doing a clothing brand originally, and it was myself and Nicolau. Now, it wasn't so much a huge push to do something like a clothing brand randomly, but I'd spent a bit of time traveling away from where I'm normally from, which my hometown's Middlesbrough. Once I left there and kind of explored and met other people and different mindsets rather than just the common that I was surrounded by, I just seen that there was just a huge quality in person of the genuine side of people. Now, getting involved in something that's like club culture and Ibiza, everyone partying and everyone kind of each dog for their own, there's there's obviously a lot of people that do things for certain reasons. Now, I've always kind of been a firm believer in doing things for the right reasons, and I kind of live by it myself. It's just like a quality that I give to my life for my purpose of getting up kind of thing. It keeps me grounded, and that's the route I go down. Now, when I notice that in other people, it's a huge quality that I recognise. It's for someone not doing for something out of their own benefit, let's say, but for doing something that could benefit someone else out of the goodness of their heart. And it's very rare, you know. It's not a huge rarity. Everyone's got it inside them, but I'm talking about people who like live their life by it kind of thing. Now, what I wanted to kind of recognise with the brand, let's call it, not so much just clothing brand right now, but was like the person in the shop who every day smiles at everyone regardless of how stressed they are, and they don't bring anything to my life. However, they're still getting about trying to smile at the next person that comes in, and just these small things. And I was very lucky to meet a crew that kind of had that same mindset, and with conversation it really resonated with them. And obviously I spent a lot of time with what turned into be kind of the Real Gang crew. Me and Nicolau actually took it out to Ibiza to be a clothing brand, but it wasn't the reason why I was there. We just relocated because we'd been going to Ibiza for summers anyway, so it was just a natural kind of place where we took it, just based on us relocating. We were taking it wherever we went. Now, I moved into a house with two brothers, the Tatler brothers, Josh and Ollie Tatler, and they were just resonating with us as friends, just on a level, similar morals, this kind of thing. And we kept on kind of just speaking about the mindset, the message, and we kept on having occurrences, meeting just so many amazing people of all different ages, from shop owners to everything else, when we were working on the floor as promoters. And again, we were just bumping into people who we just recognized for this and just the quality of person. And it just had a kind of spin-off effect that for us kind of recognizing, and there's a lot of deep conversations on beaches and everywhere else that we kind of just all got into the flow of it. At that time, I was working a lot with the Zoo Project, and we were playing parties for them, and we moved into a house on the top of a mountain in Ibiza. It sounds like it's the life of luxury. The house was actually pretty awful. It was like more of a shack kind of thing, a finca as they're called. But the space where it was in was incredible. Like, you were on top of a mountain. There wasn't neighbours for like a 5-minute drive each side. And we had the space. Now, I didn't agree on it, first of all, because I was like really work driven. I wanted to bring my budget down, be close to work and everything else. And when the budget was a bit higher in the middle of nowhere, that had me like screaming for alarm bells. But I got talked into it anyway. And we started to naturally do parties. I've thrown parties my whole entire life. So when we moved in, we obviously had a housewarming party. And it wasn't the reason why we got the house or the intention. It was more for just how beautiful it was. But then it turned into, that's where my side come in. And when Nicola had always been aspiring to the clothing side, which I was kind of on, but not driven towards, not getting up on a morning for, but I was getting up on a morning for the message. Now, when the message then went into us doing parties and we were having guests come after they played at Zoo, this is when we joined in with a Slap Funk crew, and we started doing things together, even on the mountaintop, inviting our friends to come from countries to come and kind of experience our little bit of freedom up there. It then turned into the party side of things, which is that's where my drive kind of naturally came in, and that's when it started developing into the party, what it is today. So Real Gang, the name it came around is a bit of a mad one. It wasn't that confident the first time that it happened. We'd been going over it again and again, how we can kind of resemble what this concept was. And I rang Nicola on the phone after I'd been flicking through the dictionary, like really generic dictionary hunting, trying to find words, track words down that like had a context and a meaning. And I'm a type of guy that kind of like, I'm not too in the pursuit of finding something. I kind of let stuff naturally kind of trigger me, or if something resonates with me, I'm on it. And I'd been going through, and obviously genuine was a big thing. Like, that's how I could label this whole kind of concept, was the genuine side. So looking through that and locating it, Real was meaning genuine, like straight up English language, it means genuine. Now, I was looking for like crew, like all these different things. And when I read the meaning of gang, well, you first think that gang is affiliated with, like, obviously the other side, like being in the hood and being in a gang. But a gang in the English language means a group or gathering of people. That's all it means. So the affiliation is just based on what people tie it to. So I really like that, because it had the opposite kind of effect to me initially, the word gang. And obviously it was a bit of a switch up, because we were trying to talk about not people being affiliated with crime and everything else, but being just super positive towards the average mindset of people. And I wanted to recognize the genuine people. And like I said, in different ways, someone can be genuine in different aspects. And obviously not everyone's perfect. It's not a case of trying to achieve anything like that. But the average reason someone gets up on a morning just to do good by everyone. Now, when we've done parties in that way, and then the story started to spread on what we're all about and why we're called Real Gang and who they are, we were in Ibiza, and there's quite a lot of us involved at the time. I think there was like 8 or 9 of us involved, and everyone was a really great person who spent that extra bit of time with people, would have a lot of conversations. So the story kind of spread really, really quickly on kind of what it was all about. I think that was a really special time for us, because the people that it was resonating with were the people that were coming, and the people that we were partying with, and the people that got it. I'm not saying there might have been other people that kind of came with them, but the majority of the people that didn't understand it and weren't on that level, they wouldn't even kind of listen to what was going on. So that really gave us a quality crowd from like the off, that were on the same kind of mindset, same kind of same frequency as what we were on, and that then just delivered party after party, and everything grew amongst the way. So the main thing was to do things for the right reasons, obviously. Now, if you do a brand by that, then you need to follow that as well. Which when you get into the business side of the game, and there's decisions to be made for certain reasons, like tickets and popularity and these sort of things, which are business, and this is how you run a business. For me, I still can't do it. Which it's just one of them. This brand is for that reason, and we've spoken about it a lot of times, and we've had lots of opportunities and other things, but we can't take something based on business. It has to be for the kind of genuine reason why we set it up, and it was to bring genuine people kind of together for that reason. We class it as a celebration, a party with us. We don't need to do it to push the brand or to get awareness or to do things. We really believe in like the natural process behind it, and we just believe that if we have the right mindset, we don't burn any bridges in the wrong way. We don't let ego get involved, and regardless if it happens in next month or next year or whatever, what was in our mindset, it didn't really matter, because it was just so built on just us doing things for the right reasons. And that's probably the best way I can explain it, with obviously all the hiccups in between.
That was good, mate. I think you just nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Probably the best person to explain it, like, so I hope I did nail that, to be fair.
Oh, mate, you nailed it there. And I think it really comes through when you speak about the brand, your passion for it, and how pure it is. I think pure is a good word as well for what you're doing.
Yeah, I think purity is something that's built on. It needs to be in that way, you know. It's the fuel from the crew comes from that. Like, if everyone's super pure with each other, no one's sneaky, everyone's putting time and effort into each other, these sort of like basic foundation, the energy of projects and energy that you want to do is on fire in comparison to like a normal business that is projected by maybe money or an incentive to do it in this way, which is fair enough. Everyone has their driver. It's just our driver is more, like you said, the purity keeps kind of the engine going.
Yeah. One thing I noticed as well straight away when I became aware of what you were doing was the size of your crew, that were part of Real Gang. Obviously, I do you and me, but it's me, Kurt, Dash, and Mo. There's the residents as well, so we're you and me. But you really had people that weren't DJs, and they weren't necessarily. They were obviously into the music, but they weren't like designing anything. They were just part of the crew, part of the gang.
Exactly that. It was a big part of our story. I mean, a lot of people have obviously came and gone. And a lot of people ask me time and time again, like, who's part of the gang, who is the gang, and these things. And what I say to that is kind of every single person that even joins our dance floor becomes kind of part of everything that's going on. And I've allowed people to come involved in the business and go, like, kind of free-nilly, to be honest, based on kind of the natural process of it all. So an example of that, for say, is the first year of it, we lived together in a house with a few mates. Everyone wanted to give a little bit of involvement because they believed in the kind of the concept behind it, and it also resonated with them, and they wanted to be part of the shows and things we were doing. Great. Everyone got involved. Everyone had their little place. Everyone projected a little part in the story. And that's how it kind of went on, and people moved in with us in different places, and they might have wanted to help out with things. And it was never a case of me where I wanted to kind of things to be cliquey. There's always a case of the main foundation, which is I mean, myself and Nicola founding it with Nick's brother Pete, and then us moving to Ibiza with it, and then the Tatler brothers joining in. This was like the initial kind of like people involved. I wake up every day thinking about it, go to bed thinking about it. So regardless of who comes and goes, I'm remaining and I'm staying here with the message. So in terms of the crew, it kind of fluctuates in time, but we class it as people who are part of our story and our family. We've got our friends that maybe lived with us for a year that mean a lot to us, that might maybe live in London, for example now, such as maybe some of our boys, Joe and Liam, and these guys that haven't had a great driver, that are not DJing, that are not putting money down, that are not coming up with interest, but they've all just been part of the story at some point. And when you start to think back at that, that's when you kind of realise that it's not a business as such. I've lived my life for the last 5 years since we started it, literally doing this. Which the crew thing comes and goes. The main part of it right now is kind of contacting with everyone who's been involved. So I've actually been in touch with people over this time, of course, going back down memory lane. Like maybe people who were doing things with us a few years ago. Maybe we had a couple of friends that lived with us and who were involved. I've been reaching out to kind of everyone, so that we're hoping that when we can come back, I can bring everyone back together for maybe a couple of little moments, and we can do kind of the big collective thing again. Because times come and go. You know, when we were in Ibiza, we had to promote the party ourselves. A lot of people in competition have promotions teams. They have huge budgets. So our crew was our promotion team. Our crew was our budget. Everyone made things work. So yeah, it's been pretty beautiful that it hasn't been like closed off from people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that a lot of people have came and got involved for a little bit, and they've took real positives from it and the experience from it. So yeah, we're a very open pool, and we're always kind of growing, and then some people go in different places, but we always stay in touch with everyone, and everyone always comes together.
Yeah, and I think, business or not, it's been probably a great marketing tool for you, the size of the crew, and then people are speaking about the brand, and that's probably how I found out about it. People are speaking about it because a lot of people feel like they're involved, or they are involved, and that's what's fun at the parties.
Yeah, and that was just a natural thing, you know, that was like a natural positive to come out of it all. It was never kind of a mindset thing. It was never an idea. It was just people around us who spending a lot of time with us, maybe in a living situation or something like this, getting involved. And like you said, we had that natural positive of not just the message spreading, but the message spreading from people who had the same kind of mindset as us, which was normally a lot spent on a positive conversation or giving extra time in the average person that you meet. So we had like a real quality to the merge as well, which I think that's what gave us kind of the solid crowd for every party that we've put on, to have that solid foundation of people that come regardless of who's playing, regardless of what's going on. And that's all came as the end product of that.
Yeah, I think it's really special what you built, and it must be even more magical the fact it was done in Ibiza. And for people that don't know, how long was it? Seasons, or did you do a full few? You did a full all year round, didn't you?
Yeah, I'd done a couple of years full round, and then I think in total, I think I've done 7 or 8 years. Nicola's done one more than me, so we've had a lot of time spent there. I feel like I grew up there. I left my hometown, I think I must have been like 19, 20. And I mean, at that time, Ibiza for me was something that you hear everyone speak about, and it's like the mecca of everything. And I'm going in there super amateur with kind of getting my way around things. And now to look back like years on and like have a community of people that I know and have a network and have times and memories and built a career off it, it's crazy to even look back on, like nuts. The first year I went out there, I should have never ever went back with all the drama that happened and went on, which I'm sure is the story of everyone's first season. But I think that does add to the story. You know, I don't think we could have had something like what we've created in, say, for example, Manchester or somewhere. I mean, you're not really sitting at the beach in Manchester speaking about energy and speaking about doing the right things in life in certain scenarios, you know. So it definitely it's definitely been a whole part of it, you know. Every little part of the logistic just kind of adds to it. The location, the timing, the people that are involved in it, everything's just kind of went on bit by bit. Also, kind of looking back on it and being away from it, I realise now this is the longest I've ever been away from Ibiza with the restrictions. I realise now kind of the everydayness that you get off it and the inspiration as well. And I don't just mean kind of the generic saying of that. Like, I really mean that. Like, if you wake up in the sun and you're getting natural vitamin D and everything's sweet, you're spending your time thinking about the other things, not the stresses in life. So I think when you put that formula together and you get some like-minded people with a bit of energy, you put them in a scenario that's not the most stressful situation in a dreamland and make that happen. This is the kind of the end product of it.
So do you think Real Gang would be here without Ibiza, or do you think it'd be something completely different?
I don't even think I'd have the mindset to even
Yeah,
think of something if it wasn't for Ibiza. My natural background, I'm from Middlesbrough. I'm from rundown council estate areas. Like I did not get surrounded at all by any mindset that even singled out people who maybe thought well of things or wanted to do good things in life. It was just kind of dog for dog, survive type of world. So by going to Ibiza, and I know it sounds so generic and so hippie, man, but I'm definitely not gonna use the generic line of I found myself. But by going out to somewhere like that,
you
I
found
mean,
yourself.
yeah, I mean, the amount of people that you meet from different countries in one accessible place. I could play at zoo. I could be with my mate from Portugal, my other pal from Romania, my Spanish friend, my Italian friend, and you meet a lot of different people. So it's not the case of just it being a Ibiza and finding myself. I think just getting out of kind of where I'm from and seeing the big world that's out there and the different people that weren't just circulating around me my whole life. I think that's what kind of gave me the mindset to then start thinking a bit more about kind of being human and not just being caught up in the rat race of kind of generic life of working, of owning property, of doing these things. It was more the hippie side, and now I've got the common median of both of them things, where I've kind of got my kind of city aspect and background, and then the hippie parts come in also. So now I've got like a nice median and a realistic both of the two. But I mean, without traveling out to there, I don't think it'd have happened. The spare time that you spend when you're just out in the sun, chilling in places, you're not really doing that in a country where it's pouring down with rain all the time. And I think the logistics made more sense to me now more than ever. If I take the dog for, we've got a dog Luna here who we actually brought back from Ibiza a few years ago. Now I used to take her for dog walks into the mountains out my back door, and go walking for hours. Now I go to the park in the pissing down rain. I know that's a really obvious logistic change, but I mean, I'm noticing it a lot now being away for so long, how much of a positive it literally gives to everything, the project, the brand, myself as a person, our friendships, everything.
So now you speak very highly of Ibiza. So there's two questions. Firstly, would you advise someone now, because it's different, there's no question Ibiza is different than to what, 9 years ago you said, 8 years ago? Do you think if you were 19 now and you went, you would go on the same path, or do you think that golden era that your experience has changed?
Great question. Um, Obviously, it's all down to the person as well individually, based on kind of what their aspect of going to is things. I mean, now I've come as an end result running underground parties in Ibiza that is not kind of to the common. But before, when I went there, that was obviously all I knew was the common. So for the intention that I went there in the first place was kind of, well, it wasn't so much the commercial aspect, but it was the aspect of obviously DJs, big huge shows, big huge amazing parties, people coming from all over the world. So it was that, let's not say industry commercial, but that commercial mindset aspect of like, I want to go there and I want to experience that on, like, I classed it as like the highest level, just from growing up and hearing everything and researching and watching interviews of all the big stars like your Carl Coxes and everything else, and just being mega inspired. So the space was still around when I got there. So that was obviously a huge thing that the island's missing right now. However, I mean, I have this conversation a lot about where Ibiza is right now and where it was, and we can sit here all day saying it's not how it used to be. But for me, things work forever changing, and it's always in like a cycle. And I was told this a few years ago when I first started getting into Ibiza by a very good friend of mine, Graham Stewart, who used to be the booker for Zoo. I was always going to him for kind of wisdom within the industry. And he kind of let me know at that point is it works in a cycle. You have this kind of constant change between genres, interest, music, everything else. And hypes die down, new DJs come through, these things all work. And I think from a musical aspect, I think that that's always going to be the case, even not just the island of Ibiza, but within our industry, sounds change, stuff will be commercial, then stuff goes underground again, it goes in the cycle. However, the only difference is logistically. So logistically, when I went there when I was younger, it was obviously a lot easier. Stuff was way cheaper. Jobs were way more accessible. Promoters were not illegal on the streets. And there's been a lot of changes since then. So when I went for my first summer, I was surviving on getting around doing posters for Zoo, like just trying to make anything work and trying to get promotion jobs. And the workers vibe was electric because there was so many workers. If you had a party, you had maybe a promo team of 10 people. If you had 100 parties, you had all these promo teams all in one place, and then you have the different locations. You've got a huge percentage of people that are out there working. Now, since the PRs kind of got made illegal, and if you're on the street, you get chased after by a copper with a massive fine that's going to get you sacked. This really changes a huge dynamic in everything. And I know this is talking about one job role, but for me, this is the one job role which is the most foundation of what everything is built on. It's a promoter who gets people in a club. And if you take away the promotions team for one party and you take away the job of 10 people, and every party does that across, where do the jobs go? Where does everything move to? You can't put that many waiters behind somewhere. And also, promoter's job is still a job where people can enjoy themselves and still kind of do the half-hearted life of things rather than a full strategic job that you need to pay a huge rent for. So in terms of music, we don't know what's going to happen with music. I'm going to still be there pushing an underground sound, and maybe I'm a person to tell the next part of the story that comes in. So sound-wise, it can always change. And I'm a person who believes that the reason why I'm putting my own party on is because it's our own party. I don't care what everyone else is doing. I don't care if every single party on the island of Ibiza is commercial and then I'm the only underground party. I'm not going to be kind of drawn away from that, because people walk through our door to come to our party, and people will fly over to Ibiza to do just that. So it doesn't really matter what everyone else is doing in that aspect. But logistically, my 19-year-old self, I'd tell him to stay right away.
As in, you tell your 19-year-old self to stay there, yeah. Stay here.
In terms of logistics, I mean, what I've got out of it as a benefit, it's priceless. You know, I'd have gone through any logistic to get out of it, and I'd tell everyone to kind of, yes, go for it. But realistically now, I'm not going to spread that message of, yes, just go for it. If you need to pay 1,500 quid on a 2-bed apartment, you can't get any work. You go out there and you listen to my message on here, trying to make it sound positive. And it's a lot more of a rougher world. So I would tell myself a message of, yes, still go, but it needs to be a bit more legit and proper and organised now compared to what it was them years ago, just based on the price of everything and how much obviously they're trying to facilitate for the higher class clientele. That really is like really apparent when you look at the situation that it's all in now.
Yeah, I think it's such a shame that bread and butter of Ibiza it's like, whether we like it or not, it's slipping away.
Yeah, nothing good lasts forever, and it's really harsh, that reality.
And I know you say about the cycles, and I've had this conversation before with people about fashion. If music, fashion, it's all one cycle and comes back around. But I can't help but feel that now, maybe phones and the internet era's also pushing promoters out there, because people can look online now. That's another aspect of it. Even if they said tomorrow every promoter can go back on the street, I think people sort things out before they actually even get there now.
I agree to that, you know. And because there's so many dynamics that take place and so many factors that kind of influence this, I go for a really natural kind of, let's call it a risk. It's not so much as a risk, but let's call it as a risk. And I take a natural risk of kind of just doing what our skill set will allow us to do, push everything in the way that we physically can push it in the most creative way, put on the lineups that we want to send a message, and obviously hope that punters come through the door. That's pretty much our aspect to it. Now, I need to look sometimes based on certain things that change, like how people can access things really easy on the phone, and I take obviously small bits of consideration how we do promo and things, but I still try and do stuff really old school, and I don't try and get caught up in too much demographic of what's going on. Maybe it's because I haven't got like upscaled the party to a crazy size where I don't need to be so stressed out by them things, and that might be a comfort zone where I like more intimate things. But I do try and stay away from it as much as I can, brother. It scares me.
Yeah. Just while I remember, so my Ibiza experience, probably worth mentioning. Do you remember we had that villa 2 years in a row, Casamiel, but I can't remember if you ever actually came.
I don't think I did.
I don't think you did. I think
No.
everyone else that the scene at that time, we had some crazy parties. It was just outside San Antonio.
What year would that have been?
It was in 2000 and
What year would it have been?
it must have been 5 years ago. 5 years or six maybe. 6, which is I think the first time might have been 6.
We might do.
Yeah, I think what we did was, for the listeners, I was me and like the people I do You and Me with. That's how we came up with the idea as well, which is kind of magical because it's similar to you guys.
Yeah.
But what I found so good was we were having these crazy villa parties that would go on for 24 hours, which I would question if they could still happen now. I reckon you'd get shut down in the year. And we'd have DJs come back like Richie. That's where I met Richie Ahmed. I met Luca Gazelle there. And then like me and Luca got a release coming out next month together, which is like, without Ibiza, I wouldn't have ever met Luca. It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And then I think like people were not into, like Steve Lawler came one time, Hot Since 82. You know, like these crazy names.
It wouldn't happen anywhere else, would it?
No. Even Joey Essex one time, and I've got a picture on Instagram. Like that was so good because you got access to people.
Yeah.
Then it's hard because not everyone can just go and book a flight to Ibiza and go to a villa after party with Richie Ahmed and Luca and meet all these people.
Yeah, exactly.
We were in a fortunate position where we'd already kind of knew people through people, and it was like we had a villa luckily, and then we had parties at the villa.
Yeah.
But that's what I was going to ask you about, connecting with people. And do you think it's still the same now? I think it would be quite hard to actually connect with a lot of the industry people in 2021 or 2022 by the time people can go again.
Wow, this is one thing for me now. Like, I love meeting people, and this is a whole aspect of my job as well, is the fact that I get to travel around and meet people, like not just the promoter that books you, but I'm a really friendly guy. You know, I like to spend time well. Like going to play a gig, of course, it's a job. However, still every gig that I take kind of means something, and I always give value to it. So the meeting aspect is, for me now, kind of not meeting people every weekend is so strange to me, so strange. And obviously, I'm lucky enough to not have to obviously network to get in places as much as I have done previous years. But I think about it a lot now, like how do people reach out, essentially, apart from obviously online. Now, I've actually connected with people that I've never really spoke to online over this period, some artists, and just talking about music and things just kind of naturally, which I haven't kind of done in a long time. It's kind of only been like the online part, which I don't really like doing, you know. I remember like when I met Villa Lobos, I'd said that I'd never sent music over and I'd never sent anything over because I hadn't met him in person, and I respected him that much that I didn't just want to be this young kid who pops up on his email that he might never ever look at the music from. So that was something for me where once I did meet him, I brought that up in a conversation, and then I sent him music, and that's when it was a lot better of a conversion rather than obviously just pushing it out. Now, it's very hard to explain what you do. Like, for me, it's a connecting part. We can't connect right now. We can't meet people. You can't be at a club. You can't be in this aspect. So obviously it's online now. I talk to most of my mates online, it's just the mad world that we live in right now. But it must be really daunting for obviously people who are wanting to get out there in the world, and especially if they're like me and they're like a really in face-to-face type person. It can obviously be very daunting to approach someone, especially someone who you respect, and you know that might be, for example, being messaged by a lot of other people. Must be very difficult to kind of look to approach something like that. So connecting and networking, for me, it's always just been a backbone of just being kind of sincere. I've never really been a guy to mass speak to people. Again, it's obviously always for a reason, let's call it, because I'm wanting to send music to some of the big boys because I'm wanting support and I'm wanting them to listen to it. But it's still sincere, you know. It's still artists that I'm either affiliated with or I'm interested in, or who I actually respect enough to listen to the music, rather than just the fact that they're a high profile head and I can just chuck stuff over to them. In terms of social networking and seeing everyone, a few comments on some stories, man, it's mad. That's the most that I'm getting right now. apart from a few catch-ups, I really miss the kind of whole social aspect of touring and the whole social aspect of Ibiza and the whole social aspect that I've never really experienced ever before that I'm going through right now.
Yeah, I think it's one thing. I think I mentioned this with Casey. I'm not sure, but I think when we came, we'll be doing it 7 years, 8, 9 years, whatever, DJing, going to clubs, whatever. I think towards the start, it was the absolute standard. You'd go and meet a DJ in a club and speak to him and ask for his email. Well, that's what you do, innit? You'd go.
It's common practice to get sound with people face to face.
That's what you do. That was the standard thing, and it would always be. I'd go to a club. I would be like, "Oh, I'm not going to chew the DJ's ear off tonight. Have a few beers. Like, oh, what's your email, mate?" Sometimes he'd be sound, and sometimes I was probably like annoying them, and they just like look down at you. But that was the standard, and then he'd go email them some tracks. Maybe at the time they weren't even that good, but I think now it's hard. And I don't know even where to tell people to start. 'Cause it used to be, I used to say to everyone, there's no point sending emails to DJs unless they've really met you, because it's just another track.
You know what I mean?
It's just another track.
I get confused, me, when I get them through. I mean, it's super easy to obviously get them, but I just think like, huh? Who's this guy?
I'm really bad. I'll admit I'm really bad, because people just send me links and don't even say anything. But the thing is, I don't want to like sound like arrogant or anything, because it's not for this thing. But if I checked every single link, I wouldn't have any time. And it's almost, you can't expect anyone. You can't expect anyone just to because it takes like 20 minutes to check out 3 tracks, which is a long time.
You know what it is for me? Yeah, for me, it's a level of conversation. I don't care what the content is. I don't care what we're talking about. I don't care whether you're sending me a music link or you're saying hello. If you don't have a conversation with me as a person, regardless of any standard of what anyone's at, then why am I going to talk anymore in a conversation, regardless of kind of the content? Like, I've obviously looked at this and I've kind of judged myself to say, like, are you being like you said, arrogant?
Well, just ignorant. It's just hard to draw the line between being precious of your time, because you've got to be precious of your time. Otherwise, you can just find yourself in this like loop of going around in circles. But yeah, I don't know where I draw the line. It's actually a good topic. And what are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts would be I'd listen to anyone's music, absolutely anyone's, who approached me in a sincere manner. So it doesn't need a big essay, but I mean, getting on a level where it's like, hi, I hope you're well, even to the fact of telling them why you're getting involved. So rather than someone come up like, hey, how's you? I've never spoken to them in my life, and I can see this person lives across the world. It's not real. It's a very awkward situation, you know, like, I don't know who you are. I'd rather you just be honest and approach me and say like, hey, like, really like your sound, been making music for maybe whatever. I just really wanted to send it over. That's the reason for the message. If someone is just honest and sincere and like a little hello, and then they actually direct, like, I'm sending this message for this reason, sweet, I'm all ears.
I'd actually rather that. Yeah, I'd rather that than people always ask me inside SYNTHO as well, like, how do you send demos out? Someone said the other week, do I attach a press shot? I was like, bro, like, no one cares about your press shot when they're checking your tracks. Like, I'm not bothered what you look like. But I'm with you. I'd rather be straight to the point, like one line. But also, I say to everyone, like, this is what I'm saying now to everyone listening, think about if it's actually going to be my sound or something I'd actually play. Because otherwise, what's the point? You're wasting your time and my time. And I think people just need to use the logic and think, if I made, well, like, I don't know, it's just on common ground. To say I made some crazy electro track, I wouldn't send it to, I don't know, some of the guys that are playing more like Paradise sounds or whatever. Just
it doesn't make sense. It's kind of like, just because we're DJs and just because we play music doesn't mean that every single thing of that sort just needs to get sent. Like, spend it wisely. Like, I'm a kind of a cross genre of sounds, so I produce really minimal stuff, but I also produce party stuff. Now, obviously, that's 2 different worlds that I'm kind of involved in, and I kind of have a little bridge between the two, which obviously I'm not going to start sending all my party guys minimal tracks, and I'm not going to start sending all my minimal guys party tracks. It just doesn't make sense. It's also, like, why are you giving them the track? Do you know what I mean? My whole reason is I like to share music. I create it all. I share it with people. I share it with friends and things. If a sign-in comes from it because it resonates with someone, that'll happen naturally, and that's what will go down. But it's not really on the huge aspect of that reason. Maybe in my younger years, I was obviously in the pursuit of that, and when I was kind of less aware of what goes on. But the thing is if someone likes your music and your music's great and they believe in it, they're probably going to drop you a message back and say like, yo, what are you doing with that track, or what are you doing with that? You don't even need to put it forward to someone to say like, oh, you're looking for tracks for the label or whatever. You're just putting that pressure on it, I think. So I think on behalf of sending music, it needs to be in context to who you're sending it to, because it's kind of like a gift almost in the first sense. You're sending it to them. You might have the aspect of wanting to be signed, but essentially, if it's not going to be signed, the best other part you're going to get is a download and then play the track. So obviously, it needs to be in that aspect. They need to be able to obviously play whatever you're sending. Again, it's also I don't think people should look at an individual purpose of an end goal, because one, you're adding pressure on yourself, and you're kind of waiting for that aspect, which is something that I just did when I was younger, like speaking to people and being excited about maybe some releases and loads of releases that never happened and these sorts of things. I was in such a pursuit of that I wasn't even spending time on trying to master my craft and my skill set. It was more about like trying to look for where I could release, because I just wasn't aware of the quality of music that I was making.
Yeah, I think people. Well, I think you've nailed it there to begin with. Put it really well, and I feel a lot of people are waiting for that, justifying their skills if it's released or not, and it's focused on the end goal.
Yeah.
I think I've already said this before in a podcast, but I think it's so important, because if you wait for someone else to approve your music, I don't think you're ever going to be satisfied. And I think it's the cliche story that probably happened to us both. We've made some sick tracks, someone's said no to them and someone else has said yes to them. But if you've gone off that first person's opinion of the tracks, then you wouldn't have got anywhere. But then you go on another label and the tracks do really well, then it's like, wait.
And that's what I like when I send music to people, that sometimes you find that a lot of people that you would think like the same tracks have different favorites. And I think that's also a good thing, when you send maybe a playlist and you've got people liking different tracks. It means that you've got maybe a consistent quality across the tracks, rather than you just got lucky one or two times and the rest is shite. So sending music in that way is, it shouldn't really be marked by anyone except yourself. Now, you can mark it based on other people, but just opinions from a various amount of other people. So you might have a bit more of like a common denominator about what the average thought is. However, I'm really kind of like, I'm really involved in the fact that every single artist I find has an incredible skill that they're themselves. So like, you are yourself. So you are your sound essentially. And if you follow a creative process where you can facilitate yourself with a skill set of where you can program and where you can mix and where you can sequence and where you can apply effects and do all these various skills, then when you let loose in the studio, then you kind of create and put your sound forward. Now, if it's something where you've actually spent time and learned a skill set and you've got yourself to a certain boundary, I think the only person there then is kind of, you're measuring yourself based on your own skill set and your own sound, because you kind of do have to believe in your product. Else kind of what's the point, you know?
I really like what you said there. And it's emphasis on the word learning.
Yeah.
It's almost like when the process is, we never stop learning. I think you're the same as me. We're always trying to get better and always trying to learn new shit, all this stuff. But when you're almost learning, say you were learning to build a car, you wouldn't try and sell the car before it's fully built. I think I was guilty of this, and probably I think we all are. The car's not even close to being finished, but we feel like we've got to get it out there. But if we just sat tight on it for like, I always just say to someone, now it seems to just be 12 months. If I can tell the track's pretty good, and they say like, do you think I should get this mixed down or send it here, send it there? I just say, my advice, head down for 12 months. There's no gigs happening this year anyway.
Yeah.
So why rush? 12 months time. If you keep going at this like progress, then you could be making some serious music.
Sit on stuff, listen to it again quite some time after. Because the thing is if you're getting involved in something, confidence is a really obviously powerful thing. Now, when you're obviously learning something that might be new, it might be very daunting to you. So you might put in a huge amount of work to try and like, overpass the daunting sense, but you kind of keep yourself motivated by, oh, you're getting better and you're getting better. And when you have that little bit of success, obviously you want to be acknowledged towards what you're doing as well. So you kind of give yourself not like false hope kind of thing, but it's not
it is false hope.
It's not like a true measure, because it's more based on your excitement rather than you actually taking a step back and saying like, okay, this is real quality. Now, it's easier for me and you to say this now because we've put the years in and we're obviously talking, looking back on it.
Yeah, hindsight's a great thing.
It's obviously like it's a lot more difficult for someone who's maybe a super good DJ and super confident in how much they want this in their life, but they don't maybe have the production skill set. So when you tie all them things together, you kind of get someone who's just wanting to cross the line and cross the line and cross the line, which I'll admit years ago I wanted to do the same thing myself. But I think exploring and learning, and I speak to people about this a lot, kind of like not just learning a synthesizer, but pushing like a synthesizer, every parameter there is on there, not just using it in effect, but using an effect and pushing it everywhere there is, and kind of going through testing with audio so that you can learn what you like and how you like to do things and how you like a sound portrayed and how you like to process a certain sound. And I think that's when it comes to a whole level of quality where you're not just an artist in the industry making tunes and everyone likes them, but it's a bit more artistry to yourself, like personally. And it's kind of how you do things and how you've learned things up until a certain point. And I think now that I'm kind of, even though I've been in it for years and years and years, I'm learning more. I've learned more in the last year than probably I have done the whole time that I've been learning. And it's because now, when things make a lot more sense, you can go to another advancement of learning and you can go more complicated, and you do really need to put the time in. So it's very easy for us to kind of tell people to not take it slow, but take it strong and proper. Concentrate on what you're doing. Don't open a synthesizer or open an effect and take from one section to the next thing, just be flicking a parameter all over until you're just listening to the sound and moving everything for no reason until it sounds all right. It's actually turning a parameter one by one and concentrating on what actually happens, what's going on. Right, well, if I add these two parameters together, what's the end result of that? And I think when you learn how to do something like that, there's certain processes and practices where you'll become confident in yourself as an actual artist individually, rather than some cool trick that you might have seen on YouTube that you're just trying to pull off a few times. So cream does always rise to the top. If people have got tracks that they think are great, like you said, sit on them, listen to them in a few months' time. And I think that's when the judgment is better than the moment of excitement you get when you first make it.
One thing I have learned is what you've just said. Cream always rises to the top. No good track will lay unsigned forever.
Yeah,
so
it won't.
I always say, like, don't worry about that because it'll look after itself. It will find its home.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I will analyze like my tracks over a certain amount of time. Like I'll kind of go back down memory lane every 6 months or a year, and I might look to see if kind of there's some projects that are hidden amongst everything. Some ideas that I might have made when I was maybe tired, that's a bit of gold, and I'll kind of backtrack for that like 6 months, 12 months, and then I'll move on. I normally switch laptop probably once every year and a half. So I'm constantly kind of moving, but keeping hold of some of the gold stuff. Now the thing is obviously you're processing, and my ears and things are constantly just going to get better and improve, as well as my equipment. So I might rework some old stuff, but yeah, I won't just get rid. It'll stay there because it can always be signed, as well as if it's timeless. What we're doing is we're adding drums together with synthesizers, with bass, with effects. There's a certain amount of instruments that we're using in there which can create timeless music, regardless of if you made it in the 90s or if you're making it now. So I think that's evident that a lot of producers might buy old equipment and old things. And why is this? Because the music you're making is essentially timeless, which should be able to be released now or in any year's time.
Yeah, that's my thing now. That someone said, what kind of music do you make? And I said, my focus now is trying to make timeless music.
Yeah.
Because I found in the past that I've signed music that's not come out for 2-3 years, and I'm sure I've experienced the same thing when there's loads of delays. And then when it's come out, I'm like, oh, I don't like it. But at the time, I was like, oh, that's just normal because time passes. But now I've come to realize, wait, that's not normal. I want to be remembered as someone who makes timeless music. So in 20 years, like a track I make will still sound good. But that's hard. I think it's hard to get there. To make timeless music's hard because we're
it's also a mindset as well. You know, your mindset is really strong on that, and I admire that because I'm in the same ball game as you. I want to really kind of leave a discography and a message rather than just impulse release. So I'm completely with you on that.
Yeah, I think it's hard though because right now there's no denying it. There's a big resurgence in 90s sound, but like 5 years ago that was sounding cheap. So like the argument for timeless music, what sounds timeless now didn't sound timeless 5 years ago. That's a whole other paradox, though.
It depends who you talk to, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, I've obviously become more aware of it recently. But I mean, obviously that sound will have kind of been there, whether it's been more widely spread or wherever it's been, because obviously records have still kind of followed that sound. For me, it's all again down to cheesy based on the person. As long as the track has a solid foundation, for me, it could be in my set, regardless of any genre, any type of anything, any year it came out, whatever it is. I look for a solid foundation in the track, something where I can blend multiple tracks or something where I can be creative, and I just need that constant groove. So yeah, mine will go right through years and right through different types of music. The music, like what you explained now, which I'm getting is the kind of sound that yourself is putting out. I'm a real kind of fan of this sound, so I can contrast into this sound and then contrast back towards kind of the minimal roots and everything, still even in different sets. And I think it's about the core foundation of things. Now, timeless then comes into that, because the reason why I've got this kind of a range of records is because they'll meet the foundation of solid, and it's got the timeless foundation which is in there. I mean, I wanted to ask you a question really of kind of, I've noticed this sound more obviously over the last few years, and it's not really been something I've massively been involved in. Even though I was part of Slap Funk, it was more about like kind of raw stuff rather than like bright, nice synthy stuff. So I wanted to ask you, in terms of your knowledge about kind of this sound, and if this sound is coming around more so evidently now, or if you've got knowledge of kind of the artists like your Delgadas and like these people who've been playing the last few years of this sound as well.
Well, it's, for me, I've always collected good records. I've collected records for a long time. Before You and Me was made, I've always bought records. And a lot of people, they get into tech house and then they take their diversion to underground. And that didn't happen for me. I collected records. I bought turntables when I was 17, the year after I bought CDJs. And straight away, I was getting onto artists like Dyed, Shonky. That was like the first people I heard about. Just as Apollonia was forming, Politics of Dancing's early stuff, when Diego Krause did his first Unison Wax stuff. And without me knowing, I was buying like Kerry Chandler records. They're kind of the records that are that vibe, that deep house, housey, 90s.
Solid.
Yeah, timeless records. So I'm really lucky now because I've got a collection of records from then. I did have a gap in time. When I went to Ibiza, I got influenced by Music on Amnesia Terrace. Like, that was the one, those years. So it was kind of, I came back and I was a bit more like, maybe I want to go for something a bit more bigger room. And I've always gone back to that. And if you look at the You and Me bookings, we've had the very first one, we had Phil Weeks, and Phil Weeks makes quality house music. That's proper. And it was that influence from, you could see it without us knowing. Then we had the Mechanism played of him. Mechanism's a bit more housey, but still it was never cheesy. Then from there we had like Ferro and Leopold in the first year. We've had Delgado after 3 years. We've always booked that proper DJs. I think that's the best way to put it. Actual proper DJs. We book people that play good music. We don't book people who produce good music. We only book people who can DJ. That's one thing we pride ourselves on, and I pride myself on.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I think that's a great thing to say, is kind of good music, because when you're getting into the world, you might see it at a distance, and if you come in at kind of a frame of mind where you're not really knowing much, you might get drawn into kind of this genre kind of click vibe. Now, this is kind of, it's quite involved in my life at the moment, to be honest. And the scenario basically is like I explained, I have like the rolling minimal party side, but then I also have the really party side that doesn't contrast in the minimal. Now, I'm not labeling myself towards these things because I want to play all stages. I want to play a small room. I want to play a big room. I want to play festivals. I want to play small intimate things. So my sound will contrast based on kind of the stage and platform that I'm on. And that won't be kind of me kind of changing the music solely based on just kind of the crowd in front of me. I'll still be playing my collection of records. However, it'll just be based on kind of the logistic to how everything is. So with me, I'm actually taking on another alias. So I'm going to come, even though I've had aliases in the past, I'm going to come with another alias and make it a bit more. And the decision is because the contrast is too much. That's why. Like from if I'm playing some of like the Miller side, and then I start playing the Dracula side, and people have come to see Miller, that will be very daunting. So I want to give like the full experience of both aliases. So I'm kind of splitting it. I'm not kind of genre hunting, let's say, but it doesn't make sense to kind of do these two projects in one person and confuse my following, confuse myself, confuse the booker. So with Miller, I'll do everything, and then with my other new alias that's coming, Dracula, that's when I'll do just soul party stuff. There won't be any minimal or micro house in there. It'll just be solid party stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, to be honest, because they are quite far apart. But one thing I want to say while I think of it, I think a lot of people hold themselves back by defining genres too much. And one word I absolutely hate, I can't stand it, the word row minimal. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it.
Me and you both, brother. Me and you both.
I just can't get my head. It makes me cringe inside because I don't upset too many people here, but this isn't a thing. It got made up somehow, and like these guys that play row minimal don't play row minimal. They just play records, but it's become it's like a meme cult. It's come like a cult of people who are just. I don't know. I can't get my head around it because
it just makes me feel awkward, and it just makes me cringe a bit because obviously, like, if you're English and you're playing something that you're calling row minimal, and I hate to take it away from anyone that's listening, but I mean the start of the word is row, which is Romanian, which obviously you're not Romanian. So I mean I know that the sound kind of comes from there. However, to tie it essentially to that, I mean the guys are not doing it at the top. At first, when I started getting involved in like a darker sound and getting involved in a more minimal sound, let's say, you would think that like you've got all these artists that are playing like super deep, minimal and everything else. However, you watch Radu, you watch Raresh, you watch any of these boys, they'll start playing from house music to deep house music to electronic music they'll go right across the board. Now, I understand the culture of it. I think it's great that Romania get a spotlight on it because they're fully deserving of it with a great roster of artists. I think all that's great to it. But I think this kind of genre has been invented by people who aren't really aware of it and aware of it because they're making up a kind of a made-up genre tied to a collective that don't essentially just only play that type of sound in that genre. And I think the versatility is really what's got these boys to stay afloat for so long, because I mean you watch these boys for 8 hours and they will take you through all sounds. You'll hear a techno artist that you'd never think that they'd play a track from, and because the track's awesome they'll play it. And I think that's what brings a whole other level of quality as an artist, where again it's the genuine side. Why are you playing it? Because it's great. You're not playing it because it's on this label. You're not playing it because this artist has done it. Why are you doing it? And I think this is what ties in the whole kind of genuine concept of I'm really kind of genuine towards myself in this way. I don't do this for anyone else. I don't do this to look good. I don't do this to have the hottest records or anything. I do it because I think that sounds good. I'm playing it at that moment. It's coming through the speaker and you're hearing it. That's it.
Well, when you see Radu play, I think I've said something before, like, I'm buzzing to see Radu. And I think they went, I didn't know you liked row minimal. I'm like, Radu plays like breaks, electro. He'll play like Oscar G house tracks. Like in some ways, he played a track by Oscar G from like 1997, a proper old school US house track. And then he'll play he plays obviously really dark, minimal music, but I'd be surprised if he actually plays many tunes from Romanian artists.
Yeah,
Radu plays.
For sure.
And then like Raresh, he'll play the sickest digger tunes or party tunes ever. And he'll do it in such a cool way. And these guys have really mastered the art of DJing, the way they build things up, emotion. It's a whole other thing. And to be honest, I actually feel sorry for people listening to this that haven't actually experienced proper clubs yet, because the clubs have been shut now 18 months. And I suspect there's people listening to this who maybe at least started to get into electronic music too. Even if you got into electronic music 3 years ago, even then, by the time you probably discovered the real gold in the underground, probably not had much chance to experience a lot of this stuff. But yeah, when you see the masters of the game, I mean, the people that have been here for 10, 15 years, they've been doing it for a reason, and they don't play hype records or follow trends. I think that come to mind is obviously the RPR guys, Apollonia, Ricardo, Luciano. I know he can play quite like cheesy tunes sometimes, but these guys play proper records, and it's not defined by genres like Row Minimal, which is so sub-genre. It's like going underneath minimal, then to Row Minimal. It's kind of seems like you're just limiting yourself.
And like I said, I don't want to take it away from anyone who's kind of been introduced to the platform under that. It's just kind of spreading the knowledge, and it'd be nice if some of them people are actually listening right now to kind of say that it doesn't need to be kind of put in within a genre, and I don't want to sound generic with that. I'm all about creativity. I believe that you're a channel and you will channel your creativity, but only if you've got the tools to do that. Now, whether you're in the studio and you're limiting yourself by maybe not allowing to access tools that allow creativity, such as maybe effects or pushing the parameters and these sorts of things, or from a DJ perspective where you're shadowing yourself into kind of one specific genre and thinking like, oh, if I play a track like that, no one's going to kind of get it or like it. This is kind of limiting creativity. So for me, I think any artist really needs to kind of allow the whole spectrum to come in, because you don't know what sound is going to influence you. You don't know what sound might inspire you to another step which you might take on your sound kind of journey. And you need to be super open to these things. Like, I think you're just stopping your own growth by kind of tying yourself into certain aspects, because then you're giving yourself like a reason to, you're searching for something, you're trying to make something happen, which of course will come at times, and I'll make tracks for parts of inspiration, but it doesn't need to be the whole time. You do need to allow yourself to express from a DJ and from a producer perspective.
Yeah, you don't have to wake up one day and go, right, that's it, I'm going to make minimal records. Like, it doesn't happen like that. I think you could probably look at my releases from 2020 and you'll see the Suck and Bit one, the You and Me ones, and you can see the kind of line going towards, I don't want to define it because that's what we're saying, but the sound is shaping into what I've become, and I believe that I've kind of found what I want to make now. It feels different to before. It always felt like before I'd make a record, then by the time the next record came out, I was already kind of experiment with new things, but in a way which was kind of not really pushing that last record sound. There's obviously a fine line here between constantly just spinning around in circles and making completely random records and growing and developing your sound. And I felt like the year before, every release was kind of a bit disjointed, whereas now they're all making some kind of sense by linking in some way. They're not by any means the same, and they're always getting better, but they're kind of now starting to take shape in a mold and get their own sound, I guess. But they're not defined by anything. I'm not making house or bombs or whatever. It's just making my thing. I think that freedom helps.
I think that's where it lays within the artist. Like, you're creating your discography now, and you can describe a record as a certain maybe genre or as a certain sound, or you made this piece of music through this time where you were concentrating on maybe the inspiration from this type of sound. But for me, I look at a music artist the same as kind of any artist, and your kind of discography is like your timeline project of things. Now, of course, there's going to be consistencies in places. And also, I do like consistent artists, you know, I do like people where I kind of know what I'm getting from them sometimes, and they might put a spin on it and it might sound like next level crazy. Like, for example, a lot of the artists for the next Real Gang release we're doing, they've kind of switched it up and made like something completely different for us that they would normally make. So I think it all kind of lays within the artist, and I think that you know yourself personally, kind of the direction you're going in, what message you're trying to put out. And also we make club records and we make party records, we make records for a sound system. So why do we do that? We do that for obviously people to be in a club or to experience something. So for them to experience something, you obviously need to portray some kind of emotion, some kind of a feeling, or just some kind of like your artistry towards it. That is just going to fluctuate. I can look at an artist, like say, for example, you look at Fortet, and you can go contrast right between all different sounds. However, there's just a certain level of quality, and there's probably a certain process in which he follows, which, like yourself right now, you're not going towards, say, for example, an individual genre. However, in this period of your time, what's inspiring you is the synths that you're touching and the drum samples that you're using, and the processes that you're following is a time in your like kind of artist timeline right now. And you could make something breaky, you could make something minimal, but you could still follow maybe the same type of sequencing techniques, using the same instrument, and you could get a different end product that might not be tied to the same genre, but you might use a shitload of the same instruments or whatever with the same processes, and then you've got your version of what might be involved in another genre, let's say.
Yeah, and it comes with over time, doesn't it? It's not something you can just decide one day. Like I said, you can't just wake up and be like, this is it. It's an ongoing process. The only thing I sometimes worry about is like some of the records I've put out, and you probably think the same thing, maybe like 3-4 years ago. They don't quite align with what I'm doing now. But do you think it's quite nice to be able to look back at artists and see the growth? Or do you think it's better when they've come as a full package?
That's a very good question, that. Very good question. Everyone's always going to get better, as we explained. I mean, some people will get worse, but essentially the generic of getting better. So, for example, if you release a record now, you could be better in a year's time. So where do you draw the line on that? You know, you're always going to get better. So what does that mean? Do you just wait and you just keep getting better and better? I definitely released way before I should have. And that was just an aspect of just self-belief. Now, I obviously have some people running the Real Gang crew. Nicolau is a perfect example of this. So Nicolau hasn't done like a solo release as of yet. Now, it's not because I'm telling him not to, essentially, but I'm giving him the right time, the right platform to, now that he's obviously had a DJ career and he's had his side going. Now he just needs to release something he's really proud of in the discography, something like you explained before is timeless. So it's a very fine line between like what your logistic is. If you're just sat in your bedroom, you don't have no crew, you don't have no creative or anything else, then sometimes you need to do these kind of stepping stone labels to kind of grow within and kind of push forward, which is exactly what I done. Start meeting people within the scene and start, maybe someone might support your record and you get it back on a feedback list and you might reach out to that person. So it does open up, but you need to have obviously a certain level of quality, because you could come into the industry, release a shit hot EP and you're in the record bag of everyone. Like, I know that because I will buy anything if it's sick. I don't care who you are. I don't care what the label is. So in that aspect, I mean, you could sit in your bedroom for 10 years, make yourself a genius, release 2 solid EPs, and you could be touring off them, which can happen. And I'm not even talking from a hype perspective. I'm talking from like, even from a digger perspective. You make 300 records, you blast them out, boom, they're gone. You've got super interesting sound that might blow the mind of someone who runs a party, who might also be an artist. And then you're invited because they want an underground head that no one's heard of, who has great music. So I believe that you can literally just blast into the industry with some solid work, depending on who you prick the ears up of. However, obviously the stepping stone is also something that's a lot more realistic for people to kind of get introduced to the scene. I just think that you should think about the reasons why you're doing this. If you're happy and you're proud of a project, sweet. Like we explained earlier, if you still are in 3 months, then maybe that could be something that you're looking. And what are you looking for? Do you want to release? Why? Why do you want to release? Do you want to release to get gigs? Right? Do you think this label will actually get you gigs? Do you think this is going to go down? Why do you want to release? So that people see that you're making records? Because that's a different judgment. Or do you want to release because you want to start building your discography and you want to network? It's all down to the individual person, I think. So it's a very, very, very fine line between each one of them.
That's so well said. The why. Why do you want to release this record? Do you actually think it's going to get you a gig? Do you actually think it's going to get played by anyone good? Do you actually like it yourself that much? That's quite a good one to ask yourself. Like, do I actually want to drive around my local area in the car and put this tune on? Or do
you know what I mean? Like, you need to ask yourself the question, why do you want to do it? And you need to be honest with yourself as well, because it's all about learning yourself in the studio for sure. and you need to be honest about yourself why you're trying to create these things. I obviously speak to a lot of people around making music, especially people in the crew. And like I brought up Nicola in an example there. Why is Nicola wanting to release? Now he's going to be on the 5 years of Real Gang. He wants to contribute and put the message forward. And he's excited because he's spent some time working on techniques and kind of building himself up. And he's not just jumped on it. So that really adds a value. And I think more than anything, that is what kind of shines through, is if you give something value in a project, normally that's the way it's going to be kind of received. Obviously not always, but naturally that's how kind of things work out. So the heart does need to be in it at the same time, for sure.
Yeah, back to what you said about releasing too soon, when I asked that question. I think we've both been the hamster testers for our crews, because we're both the front men of Real Gang, you and me. And I kind of did the same. We've done the same. We've had the same experience, really.
Yeah, very, very similar.
Just
very
in different countries. And it's funny with local dub, it's kind of the same situation you've got with Nicolau. I've advised them, like, be patient. One release won't do anything. And then they've waited, and then now got a really strong release schedule over the next 12 months. But they were very patient. Because they listened to my advice, and I learned the hard way that one record on a random label or a random EP is unlikely to do anything.
Very unlikely. And it's about the people as well. Like, if you've got some geezer that doesn't care and he just wants to put music out, you need to look at the reason why that is. The reason probably why that is so that geezer can say he owns a record label and he's putting music out. Now, essentially, do you want to sit spending all your spare time trying to craft this and work hard on something for it to be an end result on that? And I also think that it might feel like a head start to people, but also can be quite daunting, you know? What if your first experience after a short amount of time is a really bad one with 10 plays on a SoundCloud link, 2 sales, and a guy that doesn't answer back to you? It's not a very nice experience to kind of be going into. However, you spend that little bit more time, a little bit more quality relationships, something that means a little bit more. I think just the whole experience of everything is going to be a lot more motivating to obviously continue trying to do this and continue working on things, which is just, again, it's just a level of value. It's just a level of quality.
Yeah. So the Real Gang release 5 years, is that doing digital, vinyl? What's the crack there?
Right. So I'd love to do vinyl, because we're vinyl only, and obviously it's 5 years. It'd been a really nice package. However, there's 20 odd tracks on here. So unless people are saving up for Christmas to buy it, I mean, I've never really been a guy who will spend a lot of money on buying a whole compilation if I only like a few tracks and things. And the main thing about this is, again, this is not about the kind of ego thing of, oh, vinyl. It's the message. Why? So why are we doing this release? We're doing this release to kind of mark the moment, to make sure that it's not going to be incredibly stressful, but it's going to add a lot of love and energy between the artists that contribute, us and the people who follow us, and also us as a crew. And I just want it to be sealed with a super nice message and really done well logistics wise, rather than get stuck with a hefty amount of money that you need to pay for all the records to be done, the backlog that it might create, the issues that you might have on the way, and also the huge value of which each person who needs to buy it will have to then put forward. So we've gone for a digital format for the first time. It's going to be a collective of it's 23 tracks at the moment, and it ranges from artists who've played for us before, who will play for us in the future, from all over the place. So we've gone from France to Spain to Romania to Argentina. There's artists from all over. I'm not sure when you're putting this out, so I don't know whether to say names right now or
it's going out. It's going out next Wednesday.
Right, maybe we leave it for the element of surprise.
Yeah, let's leave it. People will be guessing then.
Go and check out. But again, the release is filled with love. Everyone who's contributing, like, means something to us. And they're all proper heads. Like, everyone who makes music, I don't mean proper head in a level of quality. I mean, they get up on a morning and they think about making tunes. they're sat in their bedroom making tunes. They get a studio to make tunes. Like, they're buying equipment constantly. It's just these type of people who live in a lifestyle of creating. So I wanted to go more for artists rather than just producers. I understand there's a lot of producers these days, and I think that's absolutely great. But I think it's very different between someone who kind of, it's the only thing they can think about, you know, they can't do anything else in their normal life. They're creating, and that level of commitment for me, I just like to connect with that sort of person, because I'm on that level as well. I put everything around it, my money around it, what I do with my time. I committed many years of my life, and I will continue to do so. So when I'm surrounded by people who are also on that mindset, again, it's kind of the artistry behind it that really connects everyone. And I haven't just got artists that I've got names. I've got artists on here that people have never heard of before, that have got some incredible music. So again, there's been really no profiles being used by anyone to push the sales or anything like that. It's genuine. Whoever's around us, whoever we communicate with, and whoever's got the solid music for it. And it's going to be a package of that. It's going to mark 5 years, which, like I said, last year, it just flew by. It doesn't even really count, but we had to mark the moment. We're going to be doing quite a few run-ups to it as well. So we'll be going back down memory lane, obviously showing videos of things. We might go a little bit personal and tell some background stories. And yeah, just kind of celebrating the stories, celebrating the friendships, the relationships, and everything else that's come out of it, really.
Sick, mate. I think it's a really nice way to mark a iconic anniversary. We had 5 years last September, but it was so much uncertainty. We never got around to doing anything. We planned to do a double vinyl release, but I said, like what you said before, no one buys compilations, and if they do, usually it's against their will. I think it's kind of, I don't really see the point in a £20 record, because I don't know, it's just a lot in it.
I mean, if I go to like 23 people contributing, and the max, like, if I've got 7 minutes on a track, which not many of them are, then obviously I can fit 2 on a side. But if I've got more than a 7 or 8 minute track, and I can only get 1 on a side,
it's not feasible.
I'd have needed to put out a 10 vinyl pack or reduce the artist that contributed. So we did think about this, but why do I want to level one of these amazing artists contributing for the fact of obviously format? Now, we are looking at maybe a special touch of maybe getting some dub plates created or something, so we do get it to the vinyl format, or like one-offs, maybe for the artist. So we will bring it to that format, but essentially the main goal right now is obviously digital, and to kind of spread it around. It's looking like the first time I'm actually going to go, when we got the digital format, that we'll probably go to streaming as well, just for the reason of kind of allowing this music to be accessible. I don't need this music to be underground. I don't need this music to be a gem that no one hears about. This music is to celebrate a story, and I want that to be accessible.
Yeah, the exact same approach for me. We just last week approved all the You and Me back catalogue for digital, Beatport, Spotify. It doesn't make sense to me to be excluding majority of the world just so you can satisfy 300 people to buy a record. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I get it. I'm
not quite sure what I was thinking, like why it's even a thing. I think it's kind of backwards. I do get it, the exclusivity, but when you actually look as a brand, I know you said earlier about the business side of things, you're not something you focus on, but it just doesn't make sense to exclude so many people. Forget about the money, but someone can't listen to your track unless they buy the record. That just seems like you're trying to become too exclusive. That's not what we stand for, really. If it's like purity and things like that, I think it makes streaming, even if it's not on Bandcamp or Beatport, I think streaming should be the bare minimum for everyone now.
Yeah, just to have it accessible to listen to.
Not necessarily DJ, but...
Yeah, I mean, if they want to play it out, then obviously that's when you might even put in maybe vinyl-only releases on streaming services.
That's what I think's the way forward, I think, personally.
I mean, you're releasing records. We're not really making money off records, are we? We're making money off touring. We're making money off gigs, festivals, everything else. So, I mean, you do get the bonus of what a good release will obviously bring to you. And I think that's way more of a financial aspect than any record's going to sell for you. And that comes as you do a good release, you get known, you've got promoters that might get involved, you might release on a good label, etc., etc. It's about the positives after it. Now, again, it's the why reason. So I probably will look to release a record that probably no one can fucking hear, and it'll be in that way. But maybe one or two as like a gesture further on in my career. I don't know, but again, it's just the why reason. The why reason for me now is accessibility, spreading a message, and having kind of everyone together as a collective. Also, it's going to be really nice in this aspect to the kind of unheard artists that are going to be releasing on there to kind of have a little bit of spotlight and also be accessible to someone who might not maybe invest in them as an artist, not knowing them that well. But in terms of being on part of a compilation or being in part of something, that's when it can maybe trigger these artists to have a little bit of spotlight on them as well. So accessibility and pushing it out there, which is something that I don't normally do, is the main kind of goal for this one.
It makes more sense though, man. Like now more than ever, because clubs aren't open, people listening in different formats, people listening to music through the phone on the speakers. Not even me. I'm using Spotify more than my decks right now. 100%.
I'm having a weird moment right now. Yeah. So at the moment, I always change my referencing point, and I move around a lot as well. So I'm never secure in a place now. I've had like I can always make music. It's something that I can always do. However, the last 2 weeks, it's been daunting. I haven't been able to put together hardly anything until literally a few days ago. And now my reference point at the moment, which sounds ridiculous, is actually my laptop speaker. So I've been making stems and everything at the studio on monitoring and on everything else. And then I'm laying out tracks and I'm doing tweaking. Sat where I am right now at home through my laptop speaker, and my reference just changes it at constant points. And again, like you said, when people are listening all different environments, and it's you never know where people are going to get to the point of it. Now, getting accessibility for artists, if you've got maybe a vinyl only release, you could take away the DJing aspect of DJs playing the records. But what about, like, this is what I'm really thinking about a lot now, and I'm not too educated in it, but I'm just speaking freely, is kind of like, what about the people who want to listen to your music, that then become a fan, that then come to a show, that then pay for a ticket, which would never ever buy the vinyl only release that every DJ is trying to jump on so that they can spin it and not tell all of their mates what record it is, because obviously they want exclusivity, which is what I do myself.
There's your marketing brain coming out, mate. But it's true. What you just said is my logic. Why on earth would I focus on 300 people for one record where I can hit unlimited people, thousands, millions? And I've said this year, I want to get 1 million streams on Spotify. I am absolutely miles away from it. Not because it's going to make me happy, but I think it's a good indicator if I'm growing as an artist on Spotify. And like last year, when people are sharing the things, I don't care what people are up. I think it's really good to see people smash it on Spotify. This is from a positive standpoint. But I was thinking, like, I've neglected that massivly, Spotify, because that's what people use to digest music.
I was just about to say that I've done nada.
I've done nothing. We're in the same position. And I broke down the numbers of how many I need per track, per week, per whatever, I can't remember off the top of my head, to get 1 million streams a year, but it seems pretty doable if you release a solid amount of music. But yeah, like you said, that's how we're going to grow as artists, without having to force feed constantly new records, constantly this. Spotify's super organic, getting some nice playlists, people tell their friend, do your own playlist once a month. That's what I'm going to do. Well, that's one thing you should do if you're not already. Create an artist playlist, and then you can compile your favorite tracks in Spotify. People can jump in there, because don't forget, a lot of people around this time, they actually like going to clubs, but they don't know where to find music. And they listen to music on Spotify. Just your average Joe that likes his Saturday night out, and he likes the tunes, but he doesn't necessarily know the artist. Ideal Spotify playlist from me. I'll chuck some of mine in there as well to get a few plays up. Then also some other cool tracks that he won't know that you can listen to. And I think Spotify is going to have a really positive impact on our scene. Now more music's going on there.
Yeah, I think for people like us, for sure, because like I said, our income comes from touring, it comes from parties, it comes from people coming to see us play. Now, when you get to obviously your huge higher level where you've got the commercial scene of obviously record sales and everything else, I can imagine it's kind of like the detrimental part of it. You know, we are kind of giving it accessibly, and obviously it's not a great deal of value in a money way. However, it depends how you look at value, because if a lot of people who are interested in my sound have me accessible, great. I really don't. I don't really care ever about making money from records. Essentially, I care more about it resonating with people and having kind of a message. Now, I always think about before the digital era. This is a weird thing that I always have, where I'll think about what it's like to kind of have the same role but not be from like a kind of a digital format. Now, back in the day, people were still having things that was, let's say, underground, that everyone was searching for, and it was working out, which is great. But the thing is there wasn't that amount, because the digital era wasn't around. So when the digital era comes around, you've got all the digital releases, all the oversaturation of kind of everything that then goes on. Now, if you look at a case of where you buy records, and if I buy records now in a digital era, I've got so much to kind of go forward to and so much to have accessible. Back in the day, that wasn't really a thing. So that's a different culture. Now that we're part of it and it's so accessible, that doesn't just mean that your playlists are accessible, but it also means that you can go on dj.de and hear your vinyl only releases being accessible and everything else. So this is where I've now questioned myself on accessibility and being like, right, okay, so everything is accessible regardless. Like, it really is. Like, even if I do a vinyl only release, some guy might rip it and put it on a download site and it still gets out there. So I'm now looking at kind of the positives of having a bit more of a strategy behind it, and not essentially using it just to push business, but the music's, regardless of how underground you try and keep it, it can be pushed to all corners of the world without you even realizing. So I think just by taking advantage of it, where we've actually got some control of it, and we can obviously also benefit artists by making a platform and then put them on it, I think that's just a positive. Now, I haven't really put this forward as a plan of action as of yet. It's actually going to be what I'm doing next week, is going to be spending time on doing this. But that's my mindset on it now, is kind of like, I understand the meaning and the quality of, if you just want to do a 100 vinyl release and you just do it. But I don't think, I'm not really looking for a whole career built on that. It's all about the purpose. And the purpose for me, for people to hear the music, is so I can get my record bag, go to the airport, go around and play to people who like my music. That's what I'm there for.
Word, mate. I think it's worth remembering for anyone. It's 2021 now. This hasn't happened before. What's going on? So no one can say, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, exactly. Or this is what we did back in my day. Yeah, maybe it was, for even 2 years ago. It's different now. It's a different ball game. And that's why it's exciting for anyone listening to this, which is an aspiring producer, because the script's getting rewrote next year. I'm telling you now, it's going to be completely different. There'll be people now who were flying before all this. They're probably sat there. I think this probably will upset some people, but I heard the constant thing of, they weren't releasing music while the clubs were shut. Okay, now it's been over a year, right? If you still stick to that for another year, I think you'll be lucky if you're still getting gigs. If people wait for 2 years, I think it's
very weird, isn't it?
It's very weird, and I think it's a shame I'm gutted the amount of tracks I released last year which didn't get the club experience, because they were the best tracks I've wrote, like the Suck and Fit EP, which would have done the rounds in the summer, which that was my dream, to go to Ibiza in the summer, be in DC10, and then someone plays my record, Richie. I was like, how's he got the record? Obviously, I saw a few videos of last summer, like surprising ones, like Della Swing at El Row, just them cool ones when it's like, how's he got my record, and it's completely random. But yeah, I think that not releasing a record for 2 years is kind of crazy. And after all this, I think it's going to be completely new. And I think a lot of UK parties will be focusing on UK artists. And you'd think ones with more affordable budgets as well.
Yeah, I'm completely on that. I mean, again, it's all about the personal, and I know I keep on repeating this, but it's obviously all about what kind of the messages they want to send. For me personally, my mindset on it is that regardless of the restrictions and logistics around it, it's not really going to dent anything that I do. If I do things, I feel like it's in the moment rather than for a moment. And that's very different, like if I want to put out an EP and then I want to go forward, and I go forward for the mastering and the pressing and the mixing, it takes however long it is. However long it takes is when it comes out. I'm not really a guy and based on, right, well, this needs to come out at this time and this is going to be perfectly executable if it comes out this time. It might be, but I don't need to take this whole game to that aspect. I don't get anything from that. I'm not pursuing or chasing that. So for me, I'm staying current, and I'm always current because I'm being myself constantly, regardless of the restrictions and regardless of what it is. Now, I can never stop making music. It's my safe place. It's what I go to. If I'm in a traumatic experience, I put my headphones on. So it's been quite kind of like a story with myself amongst my music along the way, and I probably think that I've got so much feeling in my back catalogue now in comparison to what I maybe have done before, because I've probably gone a lot deeper, and I've probably projected so much more into it now. And I think that is a timestamp on this time, because when I listen back in 10 years' time to maybe some of the tracks that I've released on here, I really think that there's a lot of influences that'll take toll as me as kind of an artist right now. Now, if I'm not making and if I'm not releasing kind of based on that, then I don't know, it just really takes it away from me. It just doesn't feel natural enough. And also, like, I could release a record now in this frame of mind. Again, it's a timestamp. When I revisit this, then I'm not going to be in this same mindset in 2 years' time or 3 years' time. So this little time capsule, capture, is very important to me, I think. And I'm actually trying to make a load of music now. One, obviously, because I want a big back catalogue and an archive, and two, because I enjoy doing it, but three, because I'm trying to exhaust myself as much as I can mentally and feelings wise into my music whilst I'm going through this little period in my life, because then I can look back on it. So mine comes from a whole personal aspect rather than kind of needing to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a really refreshing way to put it. Capturing the moment, I guess. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Making music which you'll remember. I made them tracks during the pandemic of 2020 that hopefully
exactly.
never comes back.
People paint as an artist. People do things as an artist. When you buy a record, you probably know where you bought it from, where you were in your life, how you were feeling around about that time. It's kind of the same concept for me in terms of making music, and it's just like a little like timestamp. My last EP, A Moment in Time, was kind of my explanation of that, and that is literally that's how I make music. I live jam, I jam everything out, I create it in the moment, and it's just me feeling that way in that. Like, I could probably go through track after track and tell you who I had an argument with that day, or who made me happy that day, or I can really kind of refresh myself with just going through my back catalogue. So that's my feeling towards it.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way to put it, man. So what does an average day look like for you? Is it a lot of time in the studio, or is it always different?
I've been excited to speak about this because I've been watching the other podcasts and I've seen how strategic and motivated and everything.
I'm getting the vibe. It's when it comes.
To be fair, yeah, I'm a very, very, very motivated person. I'm constantly doing stuff. I'm not doing stuff. I've made my everything that I've intended to do times 10 in time that I didn't even think was imaginable. However, I'm free as a bird. I'm very sensitive with my feeling and emotion towards it. So it's a lot about how I feel now. I have thought about this often to kind of take yourself out of just the feeling, you know, like, because it's too easy to give yourself an excuse that you might want to go do something because you feel like this, or you might not. So you don't want to get caught up too much in it. But I know when I'm in my best mood to make music, and I know when I'm inspired, and I know when I jump on things. Now, I need to understand with myself that this is obviously a longevity of my lifetime that I'm committing to. So it's not a case of where I'm in a rush or in anything else. And that's also where I don't want to burn out. Now, I can put myself under a mad amount of pressure because when I'm not doing something, I feel like I should be doing something just naturally. It's just something that I carry around as a burden. However, I still need to be kind of realistic. I won't force myself into the studio. Like if something's not working out, I'll always push and push and push. But then it comes on a realistic boundary of kind of when I stop. So I need to keep myself excited. I need to keep myself motivated. And the way that I do that, because I'm so harsh on myself, is not being harsh on myself. That's how I kind of find the medium between. Now, obviously, it's not a case of don't be harsh on yourself where I just kind of have no discipline or structure at all. I have discipline and structure towards myself. And obviously, I do think I give myself motivation to give my life value, and I do things to give it value. So the effort level is 100% there, but it's just I do what I want. I don't get kind of controlled by anything. I go off feeling. I go off things natural. I turn up at the studio every day, and I'll jam, and I'll kind of go down with what happens. In terms of waking up, going to sleep, I was excited to talk to you about this because I do not know how you manage it. Sometimes I go to bed at 7 in the morning. Sometimes I don't go to bed. Sometimes I go to bed at 10 at night because I pass out. I'm trying to get a bit more management over it now because obviously I'm not partying. And when we do party and we're doing 3-day weekends and everything else, then obviously it's really ridiculous now to be taking that away from my health now and then do it in the future anyway. So I'm trying to obviously have a bit more, just a bit more structure. I've moved back to England again recently from being in Holland, so I've had to get my bearings in that properly. But yeah, I'm a very easy living free guy.
Mate, I'm actually happy. It's the other side of the coin, and it always has its benefits because I'm such a, I don't know, the way my head works, my brain works, like it's more linear and just get up, do this, do that. And sometimes if things go wrong, because I'm so regimented with what's happening in my day, it fucks all day up. This week, I may notice I got a new door in here. The guy came through the door yesterday. He was only here for 3 hours, but like them 3 hours, because he was in my way when I was usually I'd come and set up in the studio all day, it completely fucked me up. Whereas the pros would be if I kind of went more with, like with the vibe, I probably could have gone in later on, but it fucked my day up, man.
When you've lived on an island like Ibiza for that long, you realise that nothing really matters. The only thing that matters are the things that rock you. And when they rock you, it's all about things not rocking you. It's just about going with the flow. Now, obviously, you have positives in your way because obviously your structure and everything else. I admire it, and I'm sure that there's also admiration from some pros in the way that I kind of get about 100%, things.
100%, mate.
So it is what it is. I think it's all about the personal person. It's what makes you feel comfortable. If I give myself a strategic militant plan, I start feeling like I'm a robot, and it starts making me feel weird.
Well, it's funny because for me, it's the opposite. Because I'm so disciplined, I've got so much freedom. I can wake up, I go for a 5K walk every morning, I come home, I'll do a workout, I'll go for a shower, I'll make my eggs, I'll have my coffee. It's so automated without having to do it. It makes me free because that's already done, and then I can do what I want.
Yeah,
that makes sense. The discipline doesn't take discipline, which makes you feel free. Which is like it's like the paradox of when you get something drilled in so hard. At first, obviously, I was like, "Oh, it's that time again. Got to get up. Got to go and do it." But eventually, you just start doing it. It's almost just like making music on breathing. It's not a. But
I'm glad we're both comfortable though. Like what you just explained there, you've obviously got it boxed off, which allows you your freedom. And even though I'm doing something completely kind of opposite side of the spectrum, that allows me to have my freedom and make me feel comfortable. So regardless of what it is, I mean, even if we take this to music making or anything and put it in the context of the reason this conversation, it's a perfect example of people do things in different ways, but it's all about how they feel comfortable. That's it.
Exactly. And there's definitely a big movement towards things I did anyway. I've always been a guy that gets up early. So the way life is now favors me because I've always got up early. I've always gone to the gym. I've used to being on my own.
Yeah.
I've always liked just chilling on my own, making tunes. Life's in my favor now. And I can see patterns of some people who naturally don't really like to get up early because some people just can't get up early. There's night owls and morning larks, I think it is. People's circadian rhythms are different. It's not a myth. It's true.
When I was obviously having a lot of sleepless nights and things, I do like to research and I do like to look after myself as well. So in terms of what I eat and all sorts of things, I do a lot of research. So sleep was a big thing for me to kind of look into. So I bought a book on sleep. I can't really remember the right off the top of my head.
Matthew Walker.
I'm not too sure. White book, blue writing. It's the way my
Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, I think it is. That's what I'm referring to.
It's literally just called Sleep. This guy who wrote the book was he worked alongside Alex Ferguson when he had the proper Man U team in the early thousands. And I read a book that he wrote, and it was basically him getting involved in like sport and everything else, and how like tricks on sleep and how to get yourself to sleep and sleep management and these sorts of things. And in the book, it is literally differentiating in people, and you need to know your strengths, and it's about learning yourself. People are naturally will take to light easier to be able to wake up quicker, other people won't. There's different ways, and it's just kind of learning yourself. And again, just being comfortable when you wake up, when you go to sleep, what you're better with. Like, my creativity is the best just before I knock out. I can't explain it. Like, my best music that I make literally comes from like my exhausting moments when I'm like mentally exhausted and I'm completely shut off. I have a very, very hyperactive brain, and I'm just constantly like ping, 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 ping. And I do lose myself in the studio, but I don't know what it is. I've got this kind of late night curse that my best music is. I can jam during the day, but I don't know what it is. I'm a vampire, I think.
No, it makes scientific sense, because when you get tired, you think in a less linear way, and you kind of get more creative because you're sloppier, you're tired, and things can come to you in a more creative way, and it's proven. But go back to the sleep thing. In Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, I'd recommend it for anyone. Joe Rogan did a podcast with him, and he says that your circadian rhythm, some people are better at getting up earlier, some people are better at going to bed later, and that's why the whole system is kind of geared towards people that can wake up earlier, because work starts earlier, school work starts earlier. And there's an argument to be said that if school actually started like a few hours later, kids would have a much better experience, because we can all remember when we're in year 10, year 9, whatever, and you'd wake up and you'd be like, I could sleep for another 5 hours.
I definitely know that feeling.
But back to what I was saying at the start was, I think now there's no denying it. The sobriety movement's big, productivity, all this. And people need to remember, it's different for everyone. Just because one guy gets up at 4 a.m., does a 10-mile run, and then does all this, don't forget he goes to bed at 7 p.m. So I'm on this side of the spectrum, but don't forget that those hours, I go to bed at 9, half 9. People go to bed at 1.
How does this happen?
Well, the thing is, I'm putting myself down here, but I go to bed because I can't be bothered doing anything else at that time. I'm done for the day. Whereas other people might work for another 4 hours, but it seems to be glorified at the moment to do the early shit. So it's just worth bearing in mind on today's point that there's no right or wrong way. So if you're there, like if your eyes are busting at 6 a.m, but you feel well better at 9 p.m, maybe that's a signal that you should probably just stay up for a few more hours and get up a bit later. Don't bust the gut to try and be what some of these, these 4 hours sleep and you get up at 4 a.m. Like,
you need to learn yourself, and that's why I was interested in having this conversation, because like we're both taking a real kind of positive towards this. Like the way that I live my life and the way that you live yours is a real contrasting kind of our time management. However, we're both obviously very proactive. We've both ended up with a career out of this in the same kind of distance in time. When I was coming about on the scene was exactly the same as you were, and that's when we were introduced. And it's it's just kind of covering it. It's learning yourself. And this is the thing about not being too harsh on myself, because I'm super motivated and everything else. Most of the things that you see that are kind of super motivational are really geared towards kind of what you just explained.
Yeah.
Now, I get it, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but like for me, that would be so daunting to kind of not have kind of the kind of outlook on myself that I have now and the understanding of myself, and kind of to go down that route and think that I was doing something wrong. Like I remember time and time again, my mum just didn't get me. Like I'd be making music till daft o'clock in the morning. People would be waking up and I'd still be there with my headphones on, and like it was just something where I've always just kind of been in that way. Waking up is not something where it's kind of like a lazy situation. I probably have less sleep than probably the average person. But I always feel like I'm missing out on something. And I always live with my crew. So I've lived with my crew for years and years and years. There's always something going on in this house. There's always some conversation and there's always something going on. So yeah, I need to do a lot better on sleep management, which I've actually been doing over obviously lockdown period and trying to get my hours and things in, because it is really detrimental to health. However, I can't be perfect with these things, and at least in kind of my backbone and my mind, I'm still kind of learning myself. I'm still understanding. I mean, I've learned more about myself over this lockdown in music and personally than probably ever.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. But yeah, back to the sleep thing. It's essential. The more research, reading, podcasts, listen, and there's so many effects of like your cardiovascular, testosterone levels. It's endless. Your retention after reading, things like that, which it's never ending. And like you say, I think this whole process is about self-awareness, and I started a new book actually last week on self-awareness and all the different pillars and things like that. But trying to just learn yourself and what your values are. I think you seem like a very self-aware person. It's funny because if I went to you, I'm self-aware, that's not really being that self-aware. And I know I'm working on it, but you seem to know what you value in life, and everything has a reason, which is important.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I get up.
Yeah.
I have like a huge meaning towards everything, which is a huge positive, but also a huge negative, because not everyone kind of has that mindset, and you can't kind of mark people based on the differences because everyone's different. So it's very difficult to find like a lot of value. And I'm not trying to be generic here, but kind of the world that we live in, the saturation of everything, there's not a great, huge deal of value. I mean, back in the day, they would build an amazing building which you see from hundreds of years ago because it's amazing, it's a real part of history. Now it's about kind of the profit margin and going down this route. So it really kind of influences me in that sense. And I think for me, it's not that I'm against the modern day world, because I really don't want to sound like this. But I just like being a human, you know, and I like doing things for the reasons that add value to everything. Because if I don't have any value to the conversation I have with you, or if I don't have any value to what I'm doing, or I don't have any value towards anything, I kind of lose my existence with myself. Because it's like you know yourself in your own head if you lie, if you talk the shit, if you do all of this. So you just play the game. You just playing the game with yourself through your eyeballs. So for me, that's kind of how I mark myself. It's not the job I have, money I have, anything else. It's just kind of the values that I keep. And as you can hear, it's not that I'm strict with them. It's just the basics: loyalty, respect, give time to people. Everything else just kind of works out. And that's what I'm finding as I get along more and more.
I think it almost makes life easier for you, because if they don't align with them, it's a big cross. It's a no.
Yeah,
To an
essentially.
extent, in a
Yeah,
simplified version.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely an influence towards everything. The places we do parties in, the labels that I might want to do things on, the people who I'll get involved with, people who I'll remix for, people who we might collaborate with. These things, that they're all factors, you know. And it's not really a judgmental factor. It's just, it's the reason why I'm doing it. I ask myself why for everything, and this is just another kind of factor of that.
It's a big question, man. And it's in the book I'm reading. It mentions that finding your why and almost writing it down and just figuring out what drives you. Because if you think about all the different things you do in life, there will be a common denominator between them, and that's how you can find what is driving you.
Yeah, I think a key guy was the biggest like game changer for me, and just studying a little bit into a key guy, and it all came from like a £4.99 book from Bookworks in Salford.
What's it called? Key guy.
Ikigai. So it's spelled Ikyigai. Now, what your Ikigai basically is your Ikigai is built up of different things which give you fulfillment and what you're happy with. So say, for example, you have your family, you have your friends, you make music, you might buy records, you might be interested in clothes, these sorts of things. These are all kind of part of your Ikigai. Imagine it in different baskets. Now, the thing is if you're conscious and aware of this, then you can spend time based on all these things and keep your Ikigai strong, keep your family relations strong, your friends, spend some time on your music, spend some time on buying records, spend some time on different things, rather than just being shadowed by one thing and just constantly being linear towards that one thing. Now, the benefit of living kind of life in that way is, if one thing comes crashing down, something happens, which happens a lot because life is a roller coaster, then the whole world can come crashing down. You can be majorly stressed. You can't handle it in all different types of ways. However, if you have a strong Ikigai and you have a foundation on all of these different parts of your life, and you're conscious and you put time into them all, when one comes pulling down, it's not your whole entire world, because the rest of your Ikigai is strong. So you can make a lot more strategic decisions, and your whole world doesn't come crashing down because you're already aware of all the other things that you're thankful for. And when you kind of go down a route like that, it's unstoppable.
Yeah, it's not being defined by one thing. So Josh Baker isn't the DJ. I think that is the important thing, I guess, in front of it. Or that's all I am. And I have never felt more fulfilled in my life than I do right now. And I feel like it's because I was always more than a DJ, but I failed to realize that life was more than that. I love DJing is my first passion. That is it. But I felt like that was all I was doing, and I felt like I was capable of more. And now I'm doing the podcast as we speak, doing other things like writing a newsletter and doing Syntho, and it gives me more fulfillment now. And it's not, I'm playing like sports, running, all these different things, and not identifying with just one thing. Where it was before, I was just a DJ everywhere I went. Like I felt like I had to be the DJ as well. I almost felt like unless I was gonna, a good example is just going to a party and there's Josh Baker, the DJ, get him to put a track on or something. But I don't want to be soon to walk into a party, there's that Josh Baker, the DJ. I don't want to be that. I want to be a person that does multiple things, but that's still a massive part. And I think that's one thing COVID's made me realise. But I think that's on the same thing that book's about.
Yeah,
right?
I think you've done it naturally there, and I'm going to send you the book over after because it's great. And I mean, I've been passing it on. I bought my mum it. I bought Nick it. Like it's a really really a nice structure to how they kind of lay things out. I'm really glad that you actually brought that up there because what you just said about just being a DJ, just being a producer, this has been like more evident for me as like a thought that keeps entering my mind since this whole kind of lockdown thing. Like I'm 28 now. I've spent the last 10 years sat in a room playing with noises. Like where is this going kind of vibe? Will I want to be playing at gigs forever? Will I want to be playing parties forever? Will I want to be involved in that forever? And that's been huge on my mind, exactly what you just brought up there, over this time, and just a bit of a step back because I was playing weekend after weekend, after party after after party, just caught up in the world of it, going over to ADE, coming back for certain things. It was just mad. So now it's like, okay, where do I kind of want to go and where do I want to go to? And that's when now I've started to go into modular synthesis and start building my own synth. And I've started writing music now for like film scoring and doing adverts and going right down a different route of just really like experimenting with music for all different reasons, not just for clubbing reasons and other things. So I've just finished like a pack now. I've got 14 compositions of all different types of work, from trying to do my own reinterpretation of classical music to other things. And for me now, I'm so much more comfortable, and like I haven't really pushed the project so much right now, but it's feeling just great to kind of know that I think music's just a really big thing for me, and it's not just about clubs and it's not just about parties. That is obviously the backbone, and I like to celebrate and everything else, but I think that I'm going to be an old man in a room with a huge wall full of crazy instruments, and I'm just going to be sat in there enjoying my life regardless of where the music's going to go. And it's given me like it's given me kind of not a whole reason for it, because I already had the reason in my mind of why I was doing things, but it's given me something kind of like not confusing, because sometimes if you are in a club and everyone is really really fucked and everything else, like, do you want to have that as your only aspect? You know, I'm not saying that that's not a great thing, but will you be at the age of Zip or Villa Lobos and still be able to kind of see that there's certain ways of the artistry and that's the way it's portrayed? So my mindset now is maybe on some more live shows, live interpretation things, anything to do with kind of performance, and I'm looking all down that performance route, as well as producing just all genres of music. I'm going to be making a hip-hop album with one of my pals. Like, I'm just exploring and just going right throughout it all.
Oh, yeah, I love it, man. It's the exact same thing that we said earlier about limiting yourself by what we said about the real minimal thing, genres, but it's on a bigger scale, isn't it? Life in general. I definitely limited myself for a long time. That I thought I'd built this persona where I think I did build this persona where I was just a DJ. No matter where I went, also spoke about was it as well. I think I lacked taking in knowledge. All I talk about is, I do love talking about music now, but like now this conversation is going well deeper than just records and what's the idea that how was your last studio session, and I think if we'd had this conversation 2 years ago and recorded it, I think it would have just been about music. I think and I don't really think
I'm a deep guy, man. Well, I'd have pulled you in.
I don't mean like that. I don't. I've always been like curious to know more, but I mean now on the level where I think for me personally, I speak from my perspective that I feel like I've got a lot more I can add to a conversation now.
Sick. Love that.
In a way which is back and forth, and share my ideas and not just regurgitate like what I've read in a book. Actually kind of read something, add it to what I already know, and then
Love that.
say my shit. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that just comes with age. Me and you are still both kids, to be honest. And obviously these years in your 20s are just such a huge thing of growth, and we're just constantly going through bit by bit. I mean, the positive of it is regardless of kind of how we met and other things, we can obviously crack on and just have a random conversation and go kind of in this way. And I think it just shows both kind of where we're at the point of we're both explaining ourselves in different ways in different scenarios. And I think we both feel in a very comfortable place regardless of how different some scenarios are.
Yeah. And now I just think, no, hindsight's a beautiful thing. And it's kind of, maybe it's easy for us to say it now, that it's easy to say like, oh, there's more to life than that. But maybe when you're on the way up, like really chasing after at the bottom, it needs to be, maybe it does require that 100% of dedication. I think it's hard to now.
You need that reality, man. Like I've been a nightmare my whole life. Like I've been only about music, playing, making, all through relationships, all through how I was at home. Everything was just all about it. And I was so driven towards it, which was amazing. Like it put me in some incredible places. I put my balls on the line many a time. I moved country. I've done all sorts. But you need to not only have that aspect and goal, because the thing is it can be so stressful trying to pursue on one thing. And also, it really, when you start actually becoming a bit more involved in the industry and you start doing well, you start realizing that half the things that you're worrying about, you don't need to. And it is kind of like a natural progression of things. And that pursuit, when you let that pursuit go, I think that's when things actually start happening. To be fair, it was for me in a way of where you just need to trust the process and not be militant, trying to achieve something, try to perfect something, marking yourself off other producers. The worst thing you can do is make some tracks in the studio and go on someone's top EP that's been mastered by a next level engineer and sit there and try and give yourself a comparison. Yeah. It's like the worst possible thing you can do.
Yeah, I think it's hard when I think about it that there is a fine line between, you've got to put the hours in, haven't you? It's all well and good us saying, oh, it's more to life than just making tunes. But I think there is that initial outlay where you've got to literally put, I think when you're learning something, it's the curve, isn't it? Kind of, it's hard. Then you can make things really quickly and it's much easier. But just trying to get up that curve is, can be hard.
I mean, I'm addicted to this stuff, mate. I'm fully committed. I don't feel pressured. I don't feel like I need to. I'm fully on it, mate. I'm getting off this phone call now. I'm putting my shoes on and I'm going straight to the studio. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I mean, people are different, but the way I've followed it is I've just been really lucky that I'm just so kind of tied into this. It's just kind of, again, the value thing. So I don't care how much money I have. I don't care what I do. I want to be 50 and have a discography that is, I can be really kind of happy that I put my life into. And I don't know that that's how I'll feel right now, but the way that I'm feeling towards it and kind of the passion I've got, I'm more than happy to commit my one life on earth to kind of push this message. I'm constantly going to leave a time frame behind every year that I'm going to do releases, and in years to come, that's going to be my discography where I can turn around. So I won't be looking, regardless of what house I get or whatever happens. That for me is like my reason, if that makes sense. So that's how I'm going to go. I'm just going to keep doing it regardless of what happens in my life or regardless of what goes on. I go to my safe place, I document it, I put it out there, and people can look at the documentation of me sat in a room playing with noises.
I love it, mate. It's pure is the word.
Yeah, I think that's what keeps me going. If it wasn't for that Joshi Boy, I don't know if I'd still be doing it. There's been that many bumps in the road. And again, why do you want to do it? If people want to get involved in this industry for any other reason apart from you want to put your balls on the table, I think you should just chill and find something else.
I think it's I think that's worth saying, that it's a long, hard game. So you've really got to love the learning, the early days. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I've always loved the process as well. I've never ever found, even the hardest times when I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, I still found pleasure in that.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously at the time, it's horrible. At the time when bad shit happens, it's the worst thing ever. Your world comes crashing down. But trust me, when you look back on it, everything's you're glad everything else has gone down. I was meant to do signings years and years before I even did, with more like completely different genres of music and stuff. It would have absolutely tarnished me. At the time, I was devastated they didn't work out. Now I'm absolutely over the moon they didn't work out.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Fate, I guess.
yeah, it's a very it's leaving it down to fate, trust the process, and yeah, this is how our brand has now turned into after all this time, is just doing exactly that. There's no tricks, there's no anything. I think everyone's story is different, and even just doing something like picking a different venue or a different artist or even different artwork can pan off into a different story. You really can't manage how your product or brand's going to be received. You just need to do it, and if it works, capitalize on what works rather than think about it too much, because I think that's the most detrimental part: comparing yourself to people, limiting yourself, and then kind of putting yourself on that journey. And I think that if a lot of young producers are doing that, it's you're only limiting yourself, and you kind of already starting that battle with inside your own head. When even if you're making absolute rubbish, but you've sat there for 6 hours making absolute rubbish, you should be proud of yourself that you put 6 hours in, and you go in again the next day and put another 6 hours in, and that will then feed you the consistency to eventually, obviously, you're going to be comfortable, you're going to be able to make music. I can literally say that regardless of who you are out there, if you put time into anything consistently, you can literally do anything. If I wanted to be a doctor right now, I could just go and do it. I'd need to put shitloads of time into it, but I could go and do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's what everyone needs to have the confidence in, is just that, without going too much into a dream world. Just think that everything that you're making, it's only you making it. It's not anyone else, which already has a value. And then two, you're just going to keep on getting better and improve.
Yeah, it comes down to the growth versus fixed mindset. And I think you're the same as me. The growth mindset is evident. Anything is possible with time, commitment, and patience.
Yeah.
Literally anything. Anything. People will probably comment with some daft thing, but anything is possible, especially music. We're not generally brain surgeons. Anyone can do
Yeah, exactly that.
It's got to do it for long enough to see the returns.
And it's definitely worth a return for anyone watching this right now. It's definitely worth a return. If you love this and you want to make, don't put yourself under no pressure of trying to release stuff or trying to be who your hero is. Work on it for a few years and make yourself proud. It's easy.
Word, mate. So should we go on to the final questions, the fun ones?
Let's go.
I've actually not got.
This is where it's going to get interesting, isn't it? We haven't talked about many after parties. We haven't talked about many stuff right now, so I'm very curious. Let's go.
Well, is there any after party tales you want to bring up? Because I was actually going to go to the questions whether I've got some like the list of 10 questions, but let's do our after party tales first. What would Drake's the most iconic? We're not actually done many of these yet. What's the most iconic one you could speak of?
Wow. Big question.
If you could relive one.
Let's tie it to a time, yeah. So for sure, one of the most like historic things that is like absolutely mind blowing and just outrageous is definitely like one of the many parties that first summer where Real Gang was a thing, and the after parties that were on there. I'm gonna have to Google Maps and show you this location, because this is not normal. You are literally on the edge of a mountain. You turn to your right, and all you can see is the sea for as far as you go, with like cliffs surrounded by it. And when you turn around, you've got a house everywhere else. We used to literally get people to drive up the top of a mountain where, at the bottom, if you were there, it'd take you 15 minutes to get to the top in a car, and all you were going was up. You weren't going anywhere else. You were just going to the top of the mountain. So that level of commitment for people to get there was already mad. And I remember when Sil and Samuel Deep and Stefan came over, and we had a big, massive afters at hours, which just went on for days and days and days. And I can't even remember how many cars we counted at one point, but we had literally hundreds of people on top of a mountain, hundreds of feet in the air, in the middle of nowhere, like literally time of your life situation where we're not guys with rules. Do you know what I mean? Madness is going on. People are sat looking at the view of their life on a sofa on top of a roof, all sorts. And that them moments there, we were kind of spreading the message at that point, not on purpose, but we were really involved in kind of what Real Gang was. So a lot of the people that we were up there, obviously they needed to know our location and they needed to be kind of invited. Now that isn't in a clicky vibe, that's just in a way of where everyone just, it made sense that everyone kind of was there. So some of the times I'm there, and I don't say one because we're talking madness, I'm actually devastated that I might never live that kind of again. We've spoke about it many times, renting the house for a one-off party and stuff, and some of the boys have been up, but a guy lives up there now with his dog, and I think he's living there for good, and we've told him our story and he likes it all, but obviously it's not enough to have an absolute shambles of a party at the top of there. So definitely them for the period in time that it was, for the absolute looseness, because we were rascals at that time. There was no responsibilities whatsoever. For the sheer freedom, we're all from different parts of the world, and we're all stood on this one little cliff. No one knows what's going on, and the artists that we're playing, we just bring artists left, right, and centre. So definitely them ones.
That one, yeah. I think the Ibiza magic. I remember the ones we had. There was something special about them. I think it was the spontaneity of them as well. Like, even you've got some.
You don't know what you're doing on the morning.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing on the afternoon. You go with the flow. You go from party to party to party. Obviously, depending on music, but I mean, it was a madness going through that period. And like you said, Ibiza's Ibiza. If you're there, if you're on holiday, you have no issues. If you're there and you live there. Where are your issues? Yeah, so it's kind of eliminating issues, and I kind of call it like a big toddler city, not because it's full of kids, but because it's like, it's a childish mindset, you know. You don't give a shit about anything else other than what's in front of you in that moment. Now, to be honest, I kind of live my life like that. Like, as a person, it doesn't matter what's going on apart from right now, like around me. And I think that when you put people in a place, and like, that's the most human thing you can do. So when you put people in a place like Ibiza, I think that becomes a thing, and that allows you to be more open, and everyone connect more and everything else. So I don't think it's invisible magic. I think it's magic that's really apparent to see.
Good words, mate. So we'll go on to some quick fire questions that we do at the end. They're just some fun ones, and we'll start with, what was your best purchase of 2020?
Oh,
can't be music related.
Oh, you've twisted my arm there. I was just about to get excited, and then you've twisted my arm.
Or if it's a good one, or is it just going to be, if it's going to be like a something for your modular, no one's interested.
Generic Danny, yeah. Do you know what? I done a dead emotional one for Christmas. You know, I spend a lot of time away from my family, so me and my family are super close. But I always live away. I'm from Middlesbrough. Do you know what I mean? You put me in Middlesbrough now, what do I do? So I don't really spend much time at home, and I bought loads of, I got old pictures and bought all big frames, one for my mum and dad, one for my nan and granddad, and just like timeline, just how we've been timelining about things. Over lockdown, it made me realise a lot about family and stuff as well. So I got photos, hundreds of them, and cut them all out and put them all in, and that was like my my little kind of like timeline for one at mom and dad's house, to let us know what the family's kind of done and been through whilst I've been alive, and also the same for my nan and granddad. So although it isn't very fun, it meant a lot to me, that one. It was a nice one. That's probably the thing that springs to mind, because half the time in 2020 I was sat in a gaff making tunes, not buying things.
Favorite quote?
Oh, fortune favours the brave.
Good one, man. Good one. Favorite book you've ever read?
Oh. That's a great one, that. See, I'm not a mad reader in terms of writing. I am a picture book kind of guy. I'll read if I need to. So we're probably going to go down the routes of maybe some of like the autobiography stuff, and anything to do with like old school brands, like going down like Wu-Tang or Supreme, and just looking through kind of like a collective of things. I'm not really a bookworm in terms of reading, so I couldn't picture one off the top of my head. Probably one of the most meaningful ones for me was definitely the Sleep book, and definitely Ikigai. I will read stuff about spirituality and about these sorts, but there isn't anything kind of defining for me.
You should read the Nike memoir called Shoe Dog.
What's it called?
Shoe Dog. It's the memoir of the guy that made Nike. Phil, I forget his name now.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, it's really, really, really good. Highly recommend it. All about the story of how he built Nike from the ground up, which is pretty epic, really.
I'm gonna try and put a bit of bookworm into myself now, because I've been spending a lot of time on learning and taking my time out to learn new things. And I had a little Amazon hunt and chucked a couple of £100 in a few weeks ago, so I need to get into the books that I've got right now.
Yeah, I think the best thing for reading, sounds daft, but just read as much as you can. Just keep picking a book up.
Yeah,
I have one next to my computer. So say it's a track export, and I'll just pick a book up in the morning. And I think having more than one on the go at once is actually good. People say like, "Oh, I can only read one book at once," but you wouldn't watch one TV show at once. You have different ones on the go, and it can keep.
I hear that. Do you know what puts me off a little bit sometimes? It was a positive, because I basically I watched something about like the average adult is kind of still reading like a child, like reading in your head, rather than kind of just scanning and like taking in information that way. And it always trips me out a little bit now, because I can't get the voice out of my head when I'm reading, and I've tried numerous times, and it's still an ongoing battle. But I cannot get that childish reading out them letters in my head. I'll get there.
Next one, what's your go-to breakfast?
Oh,
interested to know this one, actually.
This is easy.
Bacon butty.
Definitely either an acai bowl or loads of fruit and loads of other bits in a smoothie. I'm a proper health guy, me, when it comes to eating. So that is actually what I would have to be most banging over anything else.
Are you vegan?
Well, I've been meat free for
yes or no that.
I've been meat free for 5 years. It's a very thin line, because I don't drink milk, and I haven't done for 5 years. I don't do dairy, but then if I eat some chocolate, I eat some chocolate.
What about eggs? You don't have eggs?
I don't have eggs, no.
Mad, I have eggs every day.
I'm an egg guy as well, you know. I do love egg, and I love egg fried rice and other things. And sometimes if something's happened in that scenario, like if I get a Chinese or something, then that's been the situation. But I made a pledge that year that we had that house, that I was never going to eat meat again. And I've never ever ate meat again. So yeah, you could call me vegan, but I've definitely chocolate with milk in, and probably some products with milk in. But yeah, I'm on fruit, mate. I'm on that fruit high.
The next question was, what's your Nando's order? But is it even a question?
Whatever's not got meat in. I think it's a portobello mushroom, and it's pretty banging, to be fair.
So what the next question would be then, I guess, what's your takeaway? If you were getting a takeaway, what would you get?
See, when I live a very free, open life, I live a very free, open menu. I like going to India. I like going to China. I like going to Thailand. I go to different places. But I think out of all stuff, something that's like outrageous is when you get a hench Indian and you've got all different sorts of curries, all different sorts, and you can pick at different bits. Definitely wins.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. You can't go wrong with the curry, I don't think.
Not if you get a feast, like you've got 3 different curries and you're going at a different bit. Love that.
Favourite sport?
Football all day long.
Is it Middlesbrough fan?
I have to, mate. True and true. But I mean, football was a massive part of my life.
Same there.
As I was growing up, like my pursuit was kind of going down a football route. I was fully on it. Eating healthy, wasn't really boozing when other kids were in school, because I was kind of fully on trying to pursue. But then I found the booth at a young age, and it just you don't become a footballer that easy.
I know, it's a hard one, harder than becoming a DJ, I think. So last question, what we'll finish on is, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Oh,
this always has the most silence out of any question.
It does, because I get an instant response, but it's just a few angles, you know. You go down the negative and tell yourself a reality of the negatives, or you tell yourself a reality of the positives. Because if I do one of each, right, that makes it way easier for me. So if I was to say, let's start off on the negative and end on a high note. So if it was in terms of the negative, it would be that the people high up in the industry are not the people that you think they are. And they haven't took they haven't took the decisions you think, not in terms of individual people, but just in a case of like, just in a case of it's not a reach away from who these people are. You know, everyone has got their story, and kind of don't overvalue people based on kind of where they are in the industry. Basically, value everyone as they are, which I've always tried to do. But the thing is you can put so much value and effort into someone who is one of your heroes and inspiration, who might not give an absolute toss about your existence. However, you might have someone alongside you that could be the next him that you're really not kind of even giving any notice to. And I think it's just kind of always look at things on an equal value. Don't get excited based on people's profile, which I think it's very easy to get into.
I've learned that, man. I've learned that. I think, in short, the simplest way to put it is be nice to everyone. But that's the better explanation of the point behind, if someone says to you, be nice to everyone, that's exactly why. Because the people I teach now could be the next Luciano. Like,
yeah,
you don't know.
So you need to give everyone that level of respect as well.
Yeah. I think as long as people respect your time, respect theirs. I think it's a two-way thing. This about the feedback thing, sending tracks. You know, it's a two-way thing. Like, it's the same for us. Give people time, and then also other people, they just need to be respectful of other people's time.
Sick. And ending on a positive, if I could have a conversation myself, it would be, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. Keep
it is. I think a few people I see say that it'll always be all right in the end. You'll always figure it out. You'll always figure it out.
If you love doing this and it's what you want to do it. Like, it's stuff's always going to work out. I can take someone who doesn't have a clue and give them a skill set just from dedication and commitment. So definitely just keep on going and don't mark yourself too much on other people, for sure.
Mate, I think that was an epic conversation.
Epic. I'm very interested to watch back, because we went deep in many times there, and I think it's very different to a normal content of two DJs having a chinwag about how deviled they are that clubs aren't open.
Yeah, mate, I think this is what I do with this podcast, is go deeper and not just talk about COVID and clubs being shut, because let's be honest, we don't know when they're going to open anyway. And I can't believe we're having this conversation now. We've just gone 2.5 hours without saying it, but we've now said it. But yeah, man, I think that's been an absolute pleasure. And is there anything else you want to add?
No, just to any kind of upcoming people, support the heads around you rather than the heads away from you. Always go with your gut. Try to give yourself some value in why you're doing things, and everything will be sweet. Also, just to touch up, the Real Gang compilation that we're going to be doing will be released on all of our networks, which we're mostly active on Instagram at the moment. So people will be able to check out some of the background story. We're going to be doing some spotlights on places where we've held residencies at, and a little bit more in depth of the story along the way. So if you want to kind of know some more, obviously check that out. And also just thank you very much for having me on, brother. It's been lots of fun.
Absolute pleasure, mate. I will link all your stuff in the comments, and we will stay in touch. We're going to do this studio day, right?
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. I've got the other Elias now, and I've got some old school machines there that you'd love to touch. So let's get creative. Let's do some things. And like I was saying, I'm doing stuff with all sorts. Right now, it's such a nice time. When I was in Holland, I was making music with everyone, all different artists, all different types. I'm doing the same here now. I'd say this as well to people: collaborate with friends, even when you're just coming up, because they could have sat through the other 50% of YouTube videos that you didn't, and know different things. And also just the community vibe. Without my crew, I don't even know if I'd be kind of as obliged to push as much energy into this. Crews are a huge thing, not in terms of success, but it's a driving motor to do things. So don't try and just go down the lonely road and just pursue, but try and look for kind of allies to do the journey with, because I can tell you now, it's much more enjoyable. Everything I've achieved on my own is literally overshadowed by a landslide to things I've achieved with other people. So start a crew collective and believe in them.
Word, bro. Right. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Always a pleasure, my brother. And hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yeah, man. Enjoy your studio night, and I will message you in a bit, bro.
Right, G. Take
So,
care.
bro. See you.